Welcome everyone to the World Chess Championship Game 4 featuring Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. Today's game features Carlsen on the white pieces. The past 3 games have been drawn with really only Carlsen being in any kind of position to win anything. And Caruana mostly just sort of holding down the fort. We are hoping for an exciting game today. Some people are asking, are we likely to see e4? What do you think is going to be the
e4 is my main...
That's your suspicion?
Yes, my main
Magnus
suspicion.
I, for some reason, think he's going to open with c4, and I have absolutely no idea why I think that.
c4?
c4, yeah, I think he's going to open with c4.
You can't explain it.
No, I just have a feeling. And if I'm wrong, it doesn't really matter, because who cares?
Yeah, indeed.
Stan Blamerson says, geez, Tal, I know you're young, but you get some sleep. You look like the Walking Dead.
That's true. I have some issues with the camera and I don't know how to fix it. I can try some different forms of lightning. I don't know how do you say it? Lighting, yeah. Mm-hmm. Lightning is an interesting other feature that we don't possess yet.
If you have lightning, that would be pretty fascinating.
Yes, but I'll try to fix it right now. Let's be spontaneous and see how people react.
All right. So while Tal tries to fix the lightning, we're gonna just review the format for anybody who is new and doesn't. How does that? Does he still look at The Walking Dead? Dylan says he looks fresh. If you see me, you wish you didn't. Wow. All right. So while Tal tries to adjust the lighting so that he doesn't look at The Walking Dead, we're just going to review the format. The way it works is that I'm going to be asking the questions and or reading off questions from the chat. We invite you to join in, be as participatory as you'd like.
Now I think it's back. Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
So, solved all the issues just before the game started.
Exactly right. We solved all the issues.
I have a bunch of quick announcements. I want to first say a huge thanks to Elizabeth Palmeri, who became a Patreon on the $300 Hutch special tier. And we have C4 on the board, Joseph. Oh, you got it.
I knew it.
Yeah. And
I knew it.
And just as I was mentioning it, I want to just say that I created this Patreon page almost 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more, and ever since I had this idea and nobody has purchased that tier, and I'm still willing to do all the things I committed to do, given there are enough people, and the Hutch special is going to be a very fun experience, and whatever content we create together, Elizabeth, hopefully that's okay with you, that the viewers will be able to enjoy and learn through my channel. So we have c4 on the board, e5, knight c3, knight f6, and Carlsen, as mentioned, is playing with the white pieces. Caruana is playing with the black pieces, and after knight f6 we can expect g3 and d5 as the main line. Another very popular option after g3 is bishop b4 if black wants to play for a more complex middle game. And they teleported into the main line, knight f3, knight c6, g3. Usually they start with knight f3 when they want to avoid bishop b4 or create favorable conditions for white. In case bishop b4, knight d5, then this knight on c6 can be a little bit less comfortable in case of knight takes d5, c takes d5. So in this position, bishop b4 is no longer the main line. Usually they play d5 or even knight d4 with a lot of let's say theory in recent years. d5, c takes, knight takes. Now we can expect bishop g2 and knight b6. Although there has been some trendy line that I still find a little bit odd, that people started playing something with the bishop c5 move at some point. I don't remember exactly how it goes, but it's quite a mystery to me. Maybe Caruana prepared it and analyzed it to prove equality in an easier fashion. We'll soon discover what Caruana has in mind. I'm almost convinced bishop g2 will be played, and then either bishop c5 or knight b6.
Now, for those of us who don't know this opening well, explain to... Oh, there it is, as predicted.
All right.
Bishop c5.
Yes.
For those of us who don't know this opening well, explain to us why we wouldn't take the knight on d5.
Knight d5 here? You mean instead of bishop g2?
Yeah.
Okay, so for that matter, I'm gonna need to use our brand new analysis board, which is exactly like the regular board, but with analysis in it. Actually, only now I realize that the viewers see exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to do to make the difference is to actually mention that we have this feature. Board. Now, this is the power of technology, you know? Analysis board. I think we can add an exclam here. So this is the analysis board.
There you go. There it is.
And now everyone can tell the difference. So, okay, actually we still observe the game. Rook e8 was played in the game, just as we mentioned earlier, with the orange rectangle here. But let's analyze once you had a question.
Yeah, I'm just curious why...
Why not knight?
I mean, I understand the bishop is going to go to g2. I'm just wondering, why not take the knight?
Okay, so now at this moment, white has two pieces outside developed, okay? Black has two pieces. If you capture, and black captures with the queen, what happened? You have one piece in the center, and the opponent has two pieces in the center. So, in a sense, you gave up one of your pieces without the opponent giving up one of his pieces in the center, because while you wasted another move with the knight, so the knight moved twice, he didn't waste a move with this knight. He recaptured with a new piece that developed while doing so. So knight takes d5 is essentially a loss of a tempo.
Loss of a tempo. And basically what you said to me was this is like developing your opponent's pieces for him.
Yes. And bishop g2 is developing for white. And now actually the main reason they play knight b6 is because after bishop e7, knight takes e5 is a threat with a double attack on the knight on d5. But for some reason that I haven't researched yet, after bishop c5, knight e5 fails. I don't know why, but I can imagine that it has something to do with the move bishop takes f2.
Right.
Because now if king f2, knight d1 comes with check, and black will not lose his own queen. So that's at least one of the multiple potential reasons for knight takes e5 to fail. So castles is on the board, castles, d3, and now the main move in recent theory, rook e8. Let me actually verify that, and you can mention that what I mean by verify.
Oh, you mean we're gonna check with the database?
Yes.
Now we're not going to use an engine here, but we are going to open up ChessBase and plug in the moves that we have thus far, so that we can search the database and see just how many Grandmaster games or high-end games there are in this position. And there it is. Press the reference button and let's see what we have here.
Live book.
Live book.
Okay, so rook e8.
No.
Rook e8 is not the main move. They usually play bishop b6, but I see Caruana himself played rook e8 against Wesley So earlier this year, in June, and it was a blitz game. So Caruana also played it against Anand in 2017 in St. Louis Sinkfield Cup. And we have a bunch of games by Aronian, Grishuk, Karyakin, Adams, Wang Hao, and Navarra.
There are about 10 games in the database at the 2700 level, it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, big names, Karyakin,
Narkiev, yeah.
Gelfand, Adams, and Narkiev.
Gelfand with white, yeah.
Gelfand with white.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of white players are...
I'm just saying they weren't playing this against, 2500s and, and just sort of trying to get an easy game off of them.
Yeah. So, I would, like, bishop c5 is a line that is played by black because c4 is played by many players. So, I would say there are much more than 10 people who played c4 above 2700, but those 10 picked up this bishop c5 trend in recent, let's say, 2 years. Okay, the strongest who played it thus far is Caruana himself. So
Not long ago.
Yeah, so he played it twice.
In September. So this is a line that he has been working on, except with 8 bishop b6.
He actually played rook e8 in his game against Wesley So.
Oh, that's Caruana. Oh, the other one is Navarro. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
So he played bishop b6 against Anand and rook e8 against Wesley So.
And now knight c3 on the board.
Let's see, rook e8, and Wesley in his own game, he played bishop d2. So
analysis board.
It is the analysis board.
Is it?
So yeah.
Oh.
So Wesley played bishop d2, and so does Carlsen. And Caruana played knight takes c3, and we can expect bishop takes c3. After which Caruana played knight d4. And the main line, and I would say probably I would risk saying, yeah, the only game in this position is the game between them. Which
so again, that's Wesley So versus Fabiano Caruana in Paris, in a Blitz tournament in Paris. Oh, that would have been from the Grand Chess Tour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
in September of this year. So this is definitely a line Caruana is current on.
So the orange rectangle represents where we are at the game, knight takes c3. But since you are on the analysis board, let me show you what happened in the original game. Oh, and we already have bishop takes c3 and knight d4. So they're catching up with our analysis. Rook c1, bishop b6, rook e1, bishop g4.
Bishop g4.
Yeah.
Bishop g4.
Spreading the knight. Bishop takes d4, e takes d4, and Wesley played a3. And the game ended in a draw after 67 moves, but remember, it was a blitz game. So we'll soon discover some deviation by one player or the other. And right now, let's just mention a few things about the opening. So if bishop c5 works, then it's obviously a good move because it develops a piece versus knight b6, which doesn't. And now castles, d3. Rook e8 is another developing move. The reason black doesn't develop his bishop is because it doesn't have a good place for it yet. Bishop e6 runs into knight g5, which creates a lot of pressure on black's position. And that's at least giving up the pair of bishops, or I would risk saying improving white structure at the very least. So rook e8. Bishop d2 is the most logical square to develop white's bishop. And now knight takes c3, which I assume is a part of computer-related preparation, because the justification for it is that b takes c3 is good for black, I guess, after e4. Maybe there is a different move, but normally speaking, bc3 should favor white. So if black allowed it, there must be some computer-related reason to favor black. So in both games, Carlsen here and Wesley So 5 months ago took with the bishop and knight d4, which is once again not developing a piece, but there is some justification behind it, because bishop g4 immediately doesn't make as much sense, I'm guessing, because for example white can play knight d2 and then the b7 pawn is hanging in case of some knight jumps, and I might be wrong, because this is hanging too, but this line is highly tactical, so I don't know what's the difference.
And then what, c6? What about continues with c6? And, okay.
I guess the reason bishop g4 is not necessarily as good is because after h3 you're not threatening to take, whereas after knight d4 and say rook c1 and bishop g4, you can take here and double white's pawns. So knight d4, and by the way, Joseph, what do we have here?
We have a far post.
Yeah, from black's
perspective. We have a protected piece on an open file.
And knight d4 on the board.
On the second half of the board.
Oh, it was here all along. Knight d4, yeah. So, as you mentioned, let's repeat the definition. The piece...
Protected by a pawn on an open file. A piece on an open file in the second half of the board, meaning in the opponent's half of the board, protected by a pawn.
Yeah. And that's very good for black. Usually, he would prefer to recapture with a piece, but one of the good things about the far post is that if white captures, he can recapture with the pawn and create a second open file with more space. So now you see this pawn on e2 is fixed. Yeah, it's not only that it's attacked by the rook, but it cannot move because the pawn on d4 prevents it from moving. It creates a lot of pressure on the e3 square. So the knight on d4 is quite strong, and while it's a little bit against the rules of developing the pieces as quickly as possible, as you can see, black is only 2 moves away from finishing his development. So he's not that much behind, and he's threatening to play bishop g4 with tempo. And once again, I have to mention that knight d4 is not the most natural move in the position, but it's a result of computer analysis, very modern computer analysis by top players who chose to represent this line. So knight d4, I'm guessing rook c1 is the most logical move because it develops a piece to the open file.
So let me ask you something. When grandmasters use computer preparation for opening lines, how do they determine? Because a lot of times the computer will spit forward 5 or 6 or 7 moves, all of which are advantageous or acceptable in that position. How do you choose the line? How do you decide the direction in which you're going to continue with the opening?
How do you choose the line? It's pretty easy. It shows the best moves, and some moves are less than best.
Sure, but sometimes it's a difference of, like, you know...
We have a move. Yeah, I'll answer in a moment. b4 is on the board, attacking the bishop. And once again, bishop b6 is the human move, I would say, to keep the bishop at the long diagonal, but bishop d6 is a very concrete move that I'm assuming Caruana has analyzed because he has almost 5 minutes more than he started with. So back to your question, how do I choose between different moves? Or how do grandmasters choose between different moves in opening preparation? So we try to maintain some balance between objectivity of the computer's choices and what we presume might generate practical chances to escape the opponent's preparation. Because if in a position I see 5 different computer moves, I may choose the one that is the most logical to me, but won't necessarily match my opponent's memory.
I see.
And then I can remember it better because I understand the logic behind that move, and I can just implement some long-term or, let's say, 5-move plan that helps me know where to put my pieces, and all I will have to decide is about the order of moves. And that will make my game easier and the likelihood of me making mistakes smaller. So working with an engine is a very complex field in chess, and that's probably more than 90% of professional players' work nowadays, especially above 2650 rating. And it's crucial to find new ideas. By new, I mean ideas that have never been played before, like Caruana's rook d8 in round 2.
Right.
So because this is the analysis board, we can go to round number 2 and show rook d8. So let's go from the start. So this is how the game went, and this is the Queen's Gambit decline. The same.
Nothing in this life will come for free, so get out your wallet, shake your dollars with me. I need the dollar. A dollar is what I need.
Ziki donated $2.
Thank you
so much to Ziki.
And I also mentioned that I think it was Evan donated $5 on the first round, but this notification didn't work, as I mentioned in the description back then.
That's
so
right.
Apologies for that.
Evan as well.
And he wrote back at the time, thanks for the analysis. So thank you, Evan. You are not forgotten. Rook d8 is the move that Carlsen played as a Caruana played as a novelty. And Carlsen, by the way, in the press conference was asked, like, how did you feel when you saw this move on the board? And he said, oh shit, mainly. So that was his reaction.
A genuine surprise. A genuine surprise.
So because only rook e8 and bishop e7 was played back at the time. And he also mentioned that when rook d8 was played, unlike the game where rook e8 was introduced between Karpov and Korchnoi, Korchnoi was with the white pieces in their match in 1972, I think, which is sad because Carlsen actually remembered it. I heard Carlsen saying it and I barely remember the dates. So in their match, Karpov introduced this new idea, rook e8, and Korchnoi thought for a really long time and almost refuted the move on the board and got a winning position at some point. But nowadays, as Carlsen mentioned, rook d8 is not only prepared by Caruana and his seconds, like it used to be back in the day. It's also backed up by very powerful engines and analysis that are based on very complex variations. So it's much more difficult for Carlsen and any player for that matter to face new moves. So that's what people seek for in their opening analysis, if we are back to your question. So when you find a new move that wasn't played before, that makes sense so you can remember it better, even if it will take a year to play it or more, then your opponent will be surprised. Because you play it quickly, they will also assume that you know what you're doing and the position is not in their favor.
Right.
And they will start thinking. So you'll have the psychological edge, you'll have a time advantage, and you'll have some form of initiative on the board, assuming they have a chance to make a mistake. Because you know the right path, but they don't necessarily do.
Right.
So normally, other than just searching for new moves that the computer suggests, or moves that make sense, are a little bit worse for me, but make a lot of sense to me, and I feel like I'm not practically worse. I also try to find the kind of moves that provide my opponent with a lot of choice. That's a very important matter.
I see. Okay, that's fascinating.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
Because if I can make a move that's less forcing, or that seemingly has
then he has to think more.
Has a deep idea behind it. It looks like it hides an exchange sacrifice or some form of a pawn sacrifice in the future in one of the lines, and my opponent is more likely to be afraid or be triggered to think much more and hesitate, and especially if one of the different options is a mistake and he doesn't know why. So and then you can go even deeper and say, oh, so they usually will choose the safe move in that in these situations. So in my preparation I can pick the lines in which the safe moves are worse and the complicated moves are beneficial for my opponent, or more let's say objective. So there is a lot of depth behind opening preparation, and generally speaking you don't want to get lost behind trying to trick your opponents, because what most people do is end up tricking themselves because there's so much information to remember, and if you prepare a specific line against each specific line, then it's a never-ending journey. So there has to be some structure for it, and that's one of the reasons that growing up until a grandmaster level, I had to have a coach who will guide me in which openings to play that I play to this day, and build the foundations, the positional foundations behind all my lines, so that I can later on add the tactical nuances.
I see.
And I think in the openings, without the chess coach, or at least a good book, at the very least a good book with a good structure, with words and not only moves, it's quite difficult to aim for, let's say, above 2000 level and far more if you want to learn new openings.
I see.
So back to the game. Rook b1 has been played. I'm not really analyzing, so let's go back to the real. No, stay here. You know what?
No, it's fine.
Yeah, rook b1.
I'm just wondering why taking on d4 doesn't win a pawn.
Taking on d4 doesn't win a pawn.
Yeah.
You tell me.
Takes. Oh, because he takes with the bishop. Oh, yeah. Takes the bishop and exposes the queen. Yeah.
either one of these. So
Yeah.
let's show the.
Takes.
I can take here
Right, or you can take there.
and expose the queen, or take here.
Right.
I assume bishop g3 is a little bit more precise, but it's hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is definitely good enough,
Yeah.
and Caruana probably knows which.
Yeah, and I think that's a...
So rook b1 protects b4, maybe threatening to take on d4, but it's a useful move either way because b5 is part of white's positional plan, followed by a4 and creating some kind of fixing the pawns on the queen side so that the bishop here, the monster on the long diagonal, can exert pressure on b7 later on. A very big part of black's plan, if white were to play, say, knight d2, which is a typical move, is to go c6 and a5 later on, some point in the game. And just giving a line for the viewers, if this were the position, if this was the position in the game, then c6 followed by a5 could be a really nice thematic break for black.
I see.
So creating a weakness either here or here, and utilizing the bishop on d6, and that would be difficult for white to hold on. So I indirectly mentioned how important this bishop is.
Right.
And now after rook b1, we can expect
Preempts
Caruana.
most of those ideas. Yeah, sure.
Caruana is probably trying to look for a way to develop his bishop. Not sure where, but I assume that the principal move should be probably bishop g4, and if it fails, then something along the lines of c6 or a6. That is what I'm expecting.
Mm.
It's also possible that it's a completely unrelated move like h6 or some random move with the queen, because we're still most probably in Caruana's opening preparation.
Sure.
But I'm a little bit surprised that he's thinking for almost 5 minutes already, because rook b1 is quite a natural move and he should not be surprised by it. So yeah, I'm curious what he will do. So
Does it always necessarily mean that he's surprised? I mean, I just entirely out of curiosity, if I happen to see rook b1 on the board and I'm taking 3, 4, 5 minutes to make the next move, is that always because I'm surprised? Is it possible that he's just reviewing the lines, getting himself to the point where he's absolutely certain that he knows what the next move is, that he hasn't gotten lines confused or whatever? Is it ever possible, or is it usually just because he's surprised?
Rook b1. Sorry, I'm having difficult to hear your question with all the screaming outside.
Yeah.
So knight takes f3 was played, but this is Israel, you know. People like to scream in the hall. So and some people like to be good friends with their neighbors.
Yeah, some people are very neighborly.
Yeah.
Israel's a very neighborly country.
Okay, usually it's the same people.
Yeah. Steve Smith says, are Tal and Joseph reading the YouTube chat? Well, this answers your question. If so, can you look at knight takes e5 before castles? I think we did. Didn't we?
Which move before?
Knight takes e5 prior to castles.
I think we did, yeah.
I think that's exactly what we did. Go back to the position.
Yeah, they can go back.
Yeah, I think if you
can
rewind, I think you'll find.
Don't think there is a point. To
And Justin Whitmore says, didn't know about Tal Baron. You didn't know about the Baron of Bullet? The Baron of Bullet.
That's not me.
Didn't know about Tal Baron until game 1 of the chess championships, but he's one of my favorite GMs already. He's one of my favorite GMs too. At least number 6 or 7 on the list.
Wow. The last thing I want to do is hurt you, but it's still on the list. You heard this one before?
Yeah, last thing on.
Yeah.
Picky Tipsters had a question earlier that I thought was kind of interesting, although I'm not sure the premise is correct. Hi, Joseph and Tal. Why does America steal all the best players who aren't American?
Well, they don't steal people if they technically were born in America and growing up there. So
right. So he lists Wesley So, Fabiano Caruana, and Hikaru Nakamura. Now I know Caruana is a U.S. citizen, and I know Nakamura is a U.S. citizen. I'm pretty sure Nakamura has been brought up in the United States almost until his whole life, right?
Technically, you can say that much like Israel, the USA is consists mostly of
immigrants.
Immigrants, historically speaking. So, like, it's only a matter of timing and when the people actually arrive to America. So, I don't do the. For me, it doesn't make any difference. If someone wants to live on U.S. soil and the country provides them with the rights to do so, then.
Well, no, but he's not talking about. But he's not talking about immigration. He's talking about why you have somebody, because you don't have to live in the United States to play for the U.S. flag. I mean, Arthur Kogan plays for Israel. He lives in Spain.
But that's different. If you're from the Philippines, like Wesley saw, and you want to represent the U.S., I think you should live in the U.S. in order to represent the country. I don't know the laws of the country, but I know, or I heard that Wesley actually does that, and the same applies for Fabi, and who participates here in the World Championship. And there are rumors that the same applies also for Lenier Dominguez Perez, who might join.
From Cuba.
Yeah, he might join the U.S. Team.
So he actually has to leave Cuba and live in the United States?
I don't know if he already lives in the U.S. or if they have spent some period there, but I'm sure that that they will not have people living in other countries and just representing U.S. under their flag.
That's an American thing specifically, because I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of 3 Israeli grandmasters who don't live in Israel full time. I mean, Boris Avrich is in the U.S.
There's a difference between someone who grew up in a country and lives in a different country and still represents his home country.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Okay, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. All right, yeah.
So. The people who represent Israel grew up, or at least lived here for many years, and they moved outside, and they still represent Israel. Whereas in many sports, you have people representing countries just because they're good, and that has nothing to do with their, let's say, culture.
Right.
So. That's an interesting topic, but it's something that I don't really have a solid opinion about, and I don't know what to say. I mean, to me, I feel like it's a little bit unfair that money can buy players.
Right, I think that was his point.
And I mean, when it comes
Tipsters was talking about that. I think his idea is. This turns into a thing like in sports where you can basically buy the best athletes and create the world's best team.
So let's say the people who move to the US are not naive. They're not doing it because they like the culture or something. They obviously are very good chess players. And sadly, chess players don't make a good living even in the top 50 in the world in some cases. Or at least good enough in my view. And by other sports standards. And for that reason, they have a financial incentive to represent countries that have more money. And a very famous example is Azerbaijan. And I won't mention any names, but we have some very strong grandmasters who immigrated to represent Azerbaijan. Right. And there are other examples through different sports. And I think that it's okay when it comes to clubs, like in the European Club Cup, where you have teams that are like have world champions and ex-world champions in all the boards.
Well, yeah, like Baden-Baden in the Bundesliga has every great chess player there ever was, basically all on one team.
Yeah, that's okay, because these are like it's just like the how do you call it, the Champions League in football. Yeah. But when it comes to representing countries, I agree with whoever it was in the chat that it's a little bit unfair, and I don't think that
picky tipsters.
I don't think that it makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, but this has been happening in the Olympics forever. Also, I mean, by the way, let's go back to the game board. We're on the analysis board. Maybe we go back to the game board and use our fancy little effect.
Right.
Watch this.
Oh,
there you go.
We're back to the game board.
And we're back to the game board where things have continued as expected.
And the game board, we also see moves from the game, just like in the analysis board. Minus the text above. Oh, actually the clock is blocked for some reason. Let's fix it. Here we go. You know, we have all the clock addicts that
Clock addicts.
that might
very,
change,
very
go to a
upset.
different stream once they discover that their lovely clock is shadowed. So what can we say about the position? You have a question for me after a6.
Well, the knights are off the board as we expected. Do I have a question after a? To be perfectly honest, I don't know that I understand a6. You had talked about maybe something like b6 and a4. I mean b6 and a5. I don't exactly understand a6. What's the reason for it? Is this just to prevent b5? Is that all it's for?
a6 is to prevent b5. That's correct.
Okay.
And that's probably
Saying rook b1 bolsters the idea of a b5 break, and therefore black has to do something to...
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, b5 is part of white's plan already, and this a6 probably won't stop white from getting there.
From playing a4 and b5.
But the difference is that once... Oh, wait. I made a mistake. This is not the right board. Let's go to the analysis board with the text. a4, b5, later, let's say. Just h6, for example, to pass the move. b5 takes. So what did we achieve for black as a result of this little addition of a6 and a4? What has black achieved?
Well, it's achieved an open file.
An open file. So the rook is developed without having even moved.
Right.
So yeah.
And he's avoided having to address the issue of the b7 pawn directly.
Yes.
In other words, he can leave that for a moment, let the bishop stay in its original spot for a moment, but still activate the rook.
Exactly. So after a6, so white basically is going to play 4, as far as I can tell, sooner or later, and black will achieve the open file. The main question is where this bishop is going. It's probably going to stay on c8 for a while, but I'm really unsure where the pieces will land. So this queen has to move somewhere at some point. Maybe d2, maybe c2. On b3 it can get hit by the bishop, and the same applies for a4, yeah? So one of these two squares followed by this rook going to c1 at some point, and black will most probably go h6.
Doesn't it make more sense on d2 than on c2?
And queen somewhere. I don't know what makes more sense. Both of them develop the queen in some way. It's a little bit complicated to say, but both of these squares are better than d1 because it connects the rook, and I think that's exactly what's going on in Carlsen's mind right now. Queen d2 or queen c2. Joseph, help me.
I think queen d2. I was
quoting Carlsen, yeah? So, queen d2. Okay, so far
Story
you've
must get Tolt's peak. Asks, are your name inspired by Michael Tal? No. Tal is a very common Hebrew name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we spoke about that in the first...
Deja vu.
Yeah, we spoke about that during the first broadcast, and some people had the same question, but it's entirely a coincidence. Tal is a very, very popular Hebrew name. I would say it's one of the most common names
in Israel.
In Israel, both for men and for women.
Yeah.
And what about Joseph Levine? Yes, I am named after the extremely famous chess player Joseph Levine.
Really?
Yeah, I am.
Wasn't it Levy without an N?
No.
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 Wait. No. It was just Joseph Porat. You just confused me.
Porat. No. I'm not named after anybody who has anything to do with Levine. Levine isn't even our family's real last name. That's just something that we grabbed when we moved to the United States. And Buffman, wants to know another protein bar. If you saw how skinny this dude is, you'd be telling him to eat 5 protein bars a day. I, on the other hand, have enough protein bars sitting on my gut right now to sustain me through an entire fast.
Well, feel free to have some more.
Yeah, I might have a piece. But
yeah, and a4 on the board.
And a4 on the board as expected. play is quickly turning to the queen side. It's one of the reasons why I wondered whether d2, queen d2 might be a better, why the d2 square might be a better square for the queen, so that I can shift the f for rook over to the c file without necessarily having to commit the queen to the same file. That was my whole idea. That's about all the idea I can come up with. But that's why I thought.
Me too.
You like it?
No, that's the limit of my.
That's the limit of your analysis.
True.
But
that's what I can suggest. Like after that.
Yeah, it just seems to make more sense to place the queen on d2.
This bishop is awesome.
Yeah, it is a beautiful bishop. It's a thorn in black's side already, particularly with and JSM for real says, Joseph, can I challenge you on chess.com sometime? The truth is I don't play on chess.com, but I do play on what's it called, on chess24. So if anybody wants to look me up on chess24, I'm not there that often these days, but if you want to look me up on chess24, I'm under the handle Yosef Chess, YOSEF Chess. I think it's 2 words, but it might be 1. But you can look me up there on chess24. I think my blitz rating is like 1550, 1600, somewhere around there, and my standard rating is like 1800, 1850, something like that. But but you really can't. I've discussed online ratings with a bunch of serious players, and they all say you can't really draw any conclusions from people's online ratings. But yeah, you can definitely look me up there.
That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a whole different discussion about online ratings, because you can definitely draw something from it, but it's hard to define exactly what. Mm-hmm. It's well known that some of the best online players are not necessarily the best chess players, but it does show something about tactical skills. It does show something about potential, like raw chess talent in a way, or the speed of the brain, even when it comes to positional themes. Mm-hmm. And grasping positions and adjusting to changes and so on. Mm-hmm. So it's not a direct, let's say,
corollary.
To everything in chess, but it definitely represents one's potential to become stronger than their current rating. If someone is 2400 in real chess, but for some reason is 2700 plus on chess.com, they are much more likely to have potential than those who are 2300 blitz on chess.com. Yeah. And of course there are other talents to be mentioned, but blitz is one of the main ways to spend time on chess in a fun way and help oneself to improve.
And the Baron Blitz method.
Yeah.
The Baron Blitz method.
Yeah. You can call me the Baron of Blitz if you wish.
The Baron of Blitz, not the Baron of Bullet?
I wouldn't say so, because I'm not fast enough in my opinion. And I'm working on it, but right now my bullet rating does not justify a nickname. Maybe an insult, but not a nickname.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, being like 2700 on chess.com is not nearly enough to have a nickname.
To show off, yeah.
Yeah.
Social commenter wants to know, can you explain a bit more why online chess ratings are different? Well, for one thing, they don't all use the exact ELO formulation. So just right off the bat, you can't treat the numbers as the same way. I mean, just the math alone is not always the same. That's for sure. And secondly, it's just a different game. I mean,
yeah. By the way, we didn't mention that we have c6 on the board.
Right, as predicted.
Which I'll mention something right at the analysis section.
That's right.
Of the stream. What people don't realize is that we also have the ability to teleport to a different studio, in which we have a text above our head. So b5, and what's the idea behind having played c6? Can you tell me?
Other than to bolster the b5 square?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying there's an additional idea?
I mean,
to block the white's bishop?
Let me ask you, rephrase myself and ask you
Okay.
that way, this way. What does black play now? You're playing back. So obviously without c6 in this position, let's say here you would take.
Sure.
But in the game position, what would you do here? If you just take normally, then unlike the pawn on c7, here you have a weakness that's being attacked, and if you capture here, then b7 will become a target. So you need to address b5 with a different medicine.
Bishop d2? I mean, bishop d7?
Bishop d7 will still generate or create a weakness on c6 after this.
Still create a weakness on c6, right? Of course it will.
Yeah. So what will you do after b5?
What to do after b5? And obviously anybody who... anybody else who wants to respond to the question? What else is there to do after b5?
What you gonna do?
I don't even know. That's God's honest truth. Is I actually have no idea.
Let me know. What are your thoughts? You can think out loud. So ab5 and cb5 is mentioned.
Right,
What's the other option? I don't like sentences that start with the only way to improve a chess. It's like saying the only way to live life is blah blah blah. No, that's not. It doesn't even matter what you write afterwards.
He rejects it a priori.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there any chance that I can play bishop h3 in this position, force a trade of bishops, and then bring the queen up to c7? Try and handle it that way. Does that make any sense at all?
So which move?
Bishop h3.
Bishop h3 is an interesting tempo, but bit takes c6 might pose you with some issues because cb7 is an even stronger tempo, and these two pawns are probably worth more than the exchange, especially that this is protected by this monster that cannot be challenged once I get rid of your bishop.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, so
that makes me sad.
There. So, what will you do here?
I honestly don't think I have a good answer. That's the God's honest truth. I think you have maximized my 1330 capabilities.
So what are the other options instead of this and that? Do you have any other candidate moves? Let's repeat what I taught you about how to calculate.
Right.
Checks, captures, and threats. Checks are not available.
Right, there are no checks on the
Threats
board.
are irrelevant
Mm-hmm.
because bishop h3 doesn't work. So,
Right.
but the order in which you work is you check all the. Let's not say check because it confuses people.
Mhm.
You verify all the captures. You go through all the captures.
Okay. So if I haven't looked at C takes... No, but that's the same problem.
Same problem, different situation. Now this is a new idea for you, my friend.
Sure. Yeah, it seems like a new idea because I feel like I'm completely in the...
So right now I'm threatening to capture on a6 and target the b7 pawn. What could you do to prevent that?
could play a5, but...
But what?
You're saying just... Uh-huh.
That's a pass pawn, my friend.
I see. Yeah, okay, now I'm beginning to understand your point. Yeah, now I'm beginning
It's
to
not me, it's Fabi.
No, but yeah, I see what you, I see what you mean, and this is what we've talked about a lot in our lessons, is these thinking processes, the importance of...
It's very important to understand the subtleties of the position.
Mm-hmm.
And what I discovered is that when you see young players who possess a lot of raw chess talent, they tend to understand these ideas without having seen them before.
Sure.
Which I think is fascinating, because that means that we theoretically could also achieve the same thing. Maybe for us adults it's more difficult, but it's still possible. So this idea, I provided you with tools to find it.
Right.
All you have to do is practice using these tools and improving your speed in which you use them, because there are no let's call it positional concepts that are beyond your scope. Just a matter of time and energy.
Right.
So,
yeah, I think that's a fair point. Yeah,
so
for anyone really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So in this position, this is of course a good asset for black. It could potentially be a weakness. For example, if white were to play b6 and try to attack it, but after rook a6, for example, or bishop, let's say,
well, the bishop can come to c5.
Rook a6 or bishop c5 and trying to attack it.
It's a nice square for the bishop anyway.
Shouldn't be a big problem. So after e5, if black were to be in time to later on in the long term play b6, then a5 will never be a real weakness. b6 can be easily defended because it can only be attacked through a diagonal, because the pawn blocks anyway any path for attacking the b6 pawn. So positionally speaking, it will be a good idea for black to try to insert rook a7 and b6, and then maybe transfer the rook to another open file, and maybe the bishop to a long diagonal. So that could be an interesting position from black's point of view. Now, so we still have c6 on the board, but I think we understand a little bit better what black might be preparing after b5. And let us go to the original board of the game.
Hey, I love that effect. That effect makes me happy as a human being.
You know, speaking of happiness, I've had an interesting discussion with a friend yesterday. Started yesterday, and we're still discussing it throughout let's say, through the sands of time. And it's about happiness. And the person with which I was talking mentioned that they felt happy at some point, maybe a few years ago. Not that they're not happy now, but like really, really happy for a period of like a month. And there was no trigger, no apparent reason. Just they had this period during somewhere around the age of 18, and it happened for a second time when they were maybe half a year ago, when they came back from a long trip abroad, and then the sensation lasted for like about 3 or 4 weeks, and then balanced again. And I'm trying to imagine what exactly this sensation of unexplained happiness is, and if most people here get this feeling sometimes in their life.
Sounds like a bipolar disorder.
Yeah, actually it was the me, but on a different version. So what can we say about this? Because I'm actually curious about the topic that people refer to as happiness. It's so hard to define.
Yeah, I think
because it's so subjective.
Yeah, it really is.
But
and it's undefined.
I can definitely say that chess has something to do with my general feeling of happiness throughout my life. And I wouldn't say that chess directly makes me happy, but I feel like I don't need anything in order to be happy. I need like not to have bad things that prevent me from feeling unpleasant.
So you think your natural state is happy until somebody interferes with it?
Like the word happy to me is translated more into, like there is no this word doesn't exactly exist in English, but in Hebrew it's ninoach. So some form of calm together with peaceful
comfort, peace of mind.
Yeah, so you can say that you just generally feel like you're in the moment, and that you can enjoy whatever it is that you're doing. You have no...
Black Bill says, as a PhD in biology, I can tell you that gut biomes changes can cause happiness or sadness. So he's talking about biological reasons for changes in mood.
I'm sure there are people who are chemists who can speak about chemical reasons.
Yeah, there certainly are. There are neurologists who talk about
and psychologists.
Yeah,
speak about
neurotransmitters, excess serotonin, lack of serotonin, dopamine, etc.
Yeah.
But I think what you're talking about is assuming all of which, by the way, it's a flawed assumption. I mean, that might be his point. You can't assume all things are equal because they actually aren't. People have DNA. They have their DNA and whatever comes with that. And if you have a predisposition to some, whatever it is, low serotonin, high dopamine, gut bacteria, etc., etc.,
Yes.
And Kalinol Fan 6 says Tal's happiness comes from protein bars. And I think that's true. I think your main source of happiness may very well be protein bars.
Maybe in the last week, because I didn't consume them prior to that.
And were you happy?
Yes.
Oh, see that.
I was equally happy, so I think we've refuted the protein bar theory. At least by, how did you call it yesterday? The low...
the small sample set.
Sample set.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a small sample
technique. Set. I'm applying this silly technique. So...
I don't know. I think if you ask 100 people what makes them happy and why, you're going to get 100 reasons. I really do.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean...
but what I was mentioning...
People say, oh, I'm happy if I have a beautiful woman in my life till they have their relationship with that woman falls apart, and then they'll blame women for all their unhappiness for about a week and a half till they meet another beautiful woman. And some people will tell you that
and vice versa, of course.
Joseph Kalinol Fan 6 asks, Joseph, no XL drinks today. I got the real thing this time. I went ahead and bought a Red Bull. We are not sponsored by Red Bull, but here it is anyway.
We're sponsored by Nakamura.
We're sponsored by Nakamura. Yeah. No, I just...
just kidding.
The place that I stopped at didn't have any XL. They only had Red Bull, and I don't mind paying a couple extra shekel more. It's not really that big of a difference.
Of course.
But I will say this, and I mean this sincerely. This is one of the things that has made me happy in the recent in recent days. This project is really, really a lot of fun. I don't think there are. First of all, I don't think there are a lot of people out there who get to sit for 5 and 6 and 7 hours at a time with a grandmaster. The ones that do are not 1300 level players. They're not even 16 and 1800 level players. They're 2200s who are trying to break through, into those higher things. So for me, this is a huge treat, and it's energizing. It's fun. You get to banter with people, and you get to analyze chess.
Having an audience is amazing.
Yeah, having an audience makes you more energetic. I think that's true. I think we know that. I mean, I think if you're in a gym by yourself and there's absolutely nothing going on, you're going to work out in a much more lazy fashion than if all of a sudden 5 or 6 people come into the room and suddenly you feel like, well, I can't be the one lazy guy in the gym. So, this kind of thing kind of keeps you awake. It's hard. This isn't easy. I mean, I'll be honest. This is tough. It's tough to do, especially as a weaker player, because I have to keep trying to find ideas and trying to make sense out of positions that I really don't understand.
Yeah.
But I'm having a great time. This is definitely...
I feel like having viewers also motivates us to be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah,
so we can set an example, first and foremost to ourselves, maybe to others at some point. And back to the topic about happiness. So one thing I realized is that... let me just start with the example. Okay, there is one person. I don't remember exactly the details of the example, but I think I read it in a book by Dan Ariely, and it's called something about irrationality. I don't know the title in English. Something about irrational behavior by human beings. And there's a person who worked his entire life, probably as a physicist, I'm not sure, and after many years won a Nobel Prize. And this person was taking probably the business class ticket on his way to receive the prize, and while he was like during the flight, when he should be the happiest that he's ever been, he was really annoyed because there was a fly that kept bugging him. And when you take things into proportion, then you see that it doesn't really make sense that like you work for 30 years and the only thing that ruins the sensation is like some fly going around making noise. So
Rookie one.
We have Rookie 1 on the board. And what I mean is that, like by what I started to say earlier, is that happiness, or let's say this sensation of feeling peaceful, having a peace of mind, in order to have it, you need like thousands of different little things to be aligned in the right way, or at least balanced within some range. But in order to feel unpleasant in that moment, that can affect also how your mood later on, it's enough that only one thing goes wrong out of those 1,000 different options. It could be the lighting in the room, like we had earlier. You could actually be a part of The Walking Dead. You can. It could be a sound like the neighbors earlier.
Happens in the game of chess. I mean, you can have just made a perfectly fine mood, and have a position which is perfectly fine. But then you look back, you realize, now this is about a move that has already been made and you can't do anything about it. You realize, wait a minute, there was a tactic there and I overlooked it. It's not like your assessment went into the negatives. It's just, I missed the best move, and suddenly your state of mind can completely flip, and the next thing you know, you're suffering. You're suffering emotionally for no reason. I think it's very easy to torture yourself.
So back to my first point, now that I mentioned that you need all those different things to be aligned, and there is this one thing about chess that somehow, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but something about my chess routine throughout my life allowed me to have a very balanced lifestyle and be properly distracted while still being challenged in such a way that kept me calm, in maybe even in some sort of meditation for many hours throughout every single day of my life.
Well, I think it's fair to say that sitting and processing chess does share certain similarities with meditation. I mean, you get to the point where you regulate your breathing and you're sitting calmly, etc., etc. It's not exactly meditation, but it's certainly, the only problem is that you can get very worked up emotionally during an actual game. But you seem, from players that I've observed, you're one of the calmer people at the board. Like you have a very sort of quiet and calm demeanor.
I don't even sense how time passes. Like during a chess game, 4 hours can feel like 5 minutes or less in some cases.
And for those of you who want to know just how true that is, we actually waited for Tal till 12:15. We were at the Gidon Yefet tournament, which was at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And I'm not exaggerating when I say the entire campus had already shut down. The building was empty. The parking lot was locked. Empty. Everybody was gone. And it was just me, the two Milikov brothers, and their father, Tal Baron and his opponent, who are now on move 10,546 or whatever it was.
And had a pair of bishops.
And and Tal had the bishop pair. And we're just going and going forever. But it was true. When you would go over to look and see what was going on, you could see that you were just zoned out. You were in an entirely different world.
It was like dead draw for 200 moves, and then I won.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you won that game in the end. But
I felt so bad for my opponent. But this game brings the worst out of me. That's a friend. I have some moderators from the past who helped me out with the chat.
Georgi Kolev says, great stream. Watch chess.com and 2 or 3 other YouTube streams, but you guys are making possible for the players like me, 1400, to understand and follow the game. Greetings from Germany. Well, thank you. Yeah, that was exactly the goal. The goal was for guys who might not otherwise feel as though the coverage is addressing them directly, to get a feel for the position. You know, that's why I'm here, so I can ask the kinds of questions that that people on that level ask and get the answers, because you're not going to get those questions answered on a lot of the other streams. Don't get me wrong, they're great streams. I love to watch them. But you're not going to get the answers if Grishuk and Svidler are having a conversation about the position. Anybody under 2,000 is going to be, you know, sort of swept away by the tide. But okay, but we do have some more moves on the board, and I would love some help understanding. Rookie 1. Okay, I'm not sure that I understand Rookie 1. I would have thought, based on the principles you and I had discussed about connecting your rooks, I would have thought that he'd move the queen first, get the rooks connected, and then decide what to do with them. So I'd kind of expected queen d2, but maybe you could help me understand why Rookie 1 is better.
Let's go to the analysis board. So we should work on that.
Yeah, I'm going to time
Let's try it again. Okay.
2,
3, 2, 1. Okay.
There you go.
So, now, let's go back to the game position, actually. So, here. Why Rookie 1? My dear friend is asking. So, Rookie 1 is a waiting move. There is a whole chapter by Mark Dvoretsky, who's considered by many to be the best chess coach ever lived. Which is titled the mysterious
rook moves.
Rook move.
Yeah.
Something like that. Something along the lines of like mysterious rook moves. And he claims that in many positions, making such a mysterious waiting move with the rook can be very powerful. And one of the most beautiful examples in history comes from the Karpov-Kasparov match. And I'll show this example in one of my future videos on YouTube for sure. But that will take some time. Until then, I'll explain this move. So basically, White does not know what to do. It's really unclear for both sides where the pieces will go. But one thing is clear, that the amount of relevance of each move right now is not too important. Okay, there is nothing too dynamic going on.
Sure.
And White wants to wait for Black to develop his bishop in order to push maybe b5. Why? Let me just explain that. So, I have an idea. So, if you play queen d2, Black can go bishop h3 with the tempo on the rook.
Right.
Rook goes somewhere, doesn't matter where, let's say on the open file. And then Black will go queen d7. And now, what Black achieved by this is that he developed his queen to a square that protects b7. He has some control of this diagonal, which is nice. This is a good square for the bishop. As we mentioned, it's like a thorn in White's camp. Has some potential for attack later. And he neutralizes the idea of b5, because now the same idea that we mentioned earlier still applies. As far as I can tell, it doesn't actually, because it can take, but I would say that that after b5 you can probably take twice. I'm not sure, but it makes some sense. Yeah, and in the worst case you can take and play c5. The important factor is that b7 is protected. So why rook e1? After rook e1, what happens if you play bishop h3?
Right, you don't gain the tempo on the move.
Exactly, and now I get b5 in, and you don't have time to react because b7 will be hanging.
I see.
So rook e1 is a prophylactic move against the bishop being developed. And Caruana still developed the bishop, but to the only square that addresses b5. So now Carlsen made a seemingly passive move, which kind of induced a seemingly passive move by Black, because now after b5 you can take and recapture with the bishop and you're still okay. Maybe also with the pawn. So b5 has not been played. After bishop d7, White tries to exploit this move by playing e3 which was actually played in the game. And the point being that now that the bishop is here, it can maybe push d4 and potentially open up the rook or the d file, and the pieces by black's pieces are a little bit more passive now.
Which is what you told me on one occasion, which is rather than always put the rook on the open file, maybe you need to put the rook on the file that's going to be open in a few moves.
Yeah. I mean, in this case, it's just the most
he
active
has
file
nowhere else
that
he can
prevents
put it
bishop
anyway.
h3, it's a prophylactic move.
But that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense.
So let us go back to the main board.
Oh, darn it!
It's always to the left. You know what? You want to go to the right? Let's do it to the right. Okay, I think. All right.
1, 2, 3. There you go.
Okay, you got it. So, but it will be to the left later on. So very important details about the World Championship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So e3 is on the board, and do we have another question, or should I continue?
Let me see. Well, actually,
to mumble about happiness.
No. I think the conversation has been revolving around two things in the chat. Some people have been talking about how much money there is in chess, and some people have been talking
zero.
There certainly
not
isn't
enough
as much
zeros.
Not enough zeros. Yeah, there certainly isn't as much money in chess as there are in some other things. But you know,
there's much more money than in other board games. That's for sure. At least in the Western world.
Right.
And yesterday I actually went after the game to a store in Israel, which is called Freak. And this is a place where people play board games. And
and now Levine says, hello, here with mom. My wife is here with my mother.
Lovely.
I'm lucky in the sense that my wife and my mother get along. In fact, the two of them are entirely united around one simple idea. Neither one of them can stand me. So there they are. Well, hello, my love. And as always, a shout out to my wife for tolerating this. And the fact is that most married men don't get to hide at their buddy's house for 2 straight. Listen, it's not a joke. Yeah, it's not a joke. You're talking about 12 games. It's 12 nights that I'm not at home. That's not a joke. By the time I get home, it's midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, or whatever.
Maybe my future wife and my mom can join the chat together.
That's exactly what we're hoping for. That will take us back to the topic of happiness. But in all seriousness, obviously chess doesn't have the kind of money. But you know what? Let's go back. Let's take a look at some other examples for a minute.
For sure.
If you go back 30 years, there was no money in martial arts other than boxing. There's always been a lot of money in boxing. It's an old sport with a long history and a lot of sponsorship. But there was no money in MMA. The UFC was losing money until it was taken over by the Fertitta brothers. If you go back to snooker and pool 30 years ago, there wasn't a lot of money there either. Whereas now, the prize money in snooker is immense. I mean, it's huge. £200,000 first prize, is about the standard for a lot of the championships. So yeah, obviously, the popularity of these one-on-one games, generally speaking, one-on-one games other than boxing and tennis are not as popular as team sports. And I think the other issue is that chess. Let's be honest, chess is not easy to follow. It's not as easy to follow. My wife would argue that snooker is even worse. I mean, she's more willing to watch a chess video with me than she is to watch a snooker video with me. But as an avid snooker fan, I can't help it. But a lot of people find chess to be simply unbearably boring. So yeah, you're not gonna have as much money in the game unless you probably have to change the format. You probably get a lot more money in if you played, like a 10+3 games or something like that. But and I think Nathaniel Wilkerson says it best. It's too cerebral for most people. Let's face it. Yeah, most people do not want to sit in front of a television and watch somebody explain all the reasons why something wasn't done, which is most of chess analysis. 95% of chess analysis is why the move wasn't made, what tactics prevented this move from occurring, etc., etc. And
Yeah, it's just about the pace. Only because of the pace.
Yeah.
I mean, Blitz commentary, live Blitz commentary, I think is the future of chess.
I'd like to see live bullet commentary. That'd be awesome, like one of those Texas auctions.
But real life bullet is not very...
No, I know.
Not very applicable yet. We don't have, like, maybe we'll have a new generation of kids who can play really, really quickly, but then it will still be difficult to commentate. So what I wanted to mention earlier is that I went to that store of board games, which is also considered to be the center of a game called Magic in Israel.
Right.
And there are a lot of players who come there, which are not too far from what I am or used to be in chess when I was 20 years old, in terms of how much time they devoted to the game.
Mm-hmm.
But throughout their entire life, the game of Magic has been nothing but an expense. And it will continue to be like this for them. And in the best case, if they win tournaments, they win store credit to buy more Magic cards and stuff that are related. And of course, while this is a great hobby, there are not too many differences between this game and, let's say, a bunch of other board games that I heard of, like Settlers of Catan or whatever.
Right.
Even Tetris, you can say, all of these different games that can be broadcasted, and chess, and the level of exposure and prizes in those fields is much, much lower. And the fact that I played chess up until I was 14, I had to pay for almost every tournament I went into. Maybe more or less around the age of 15 and a half, 16, I reached the level when I started getting paid for playing chess.
You mean prize money, or you mean sponsorship?
Even in the leagues, and prize money, and started teaching lessons and so on to this day. So I'm not feeling that unlucky that chess is not as popular as it should be. And also, when I started playing chess, when I was like 8 years old, and I learned more or less how to move the pieces, and of course when I was 14 and I decided I want to be a professional chess player, I wasn't aware of how well the game translates into the laptop, and how easy it is to transmit ideas and knowledge and skills and entertainment through a simple screen. And that's a huge advantage that chess has that almost no other sport has, because by watching chess through the screen, people see more or less exactly what I see when I look at a physical board, whereas it's not the same, say, when someone is playing tennis, for example.
Right.
You just watch a 2D representation of tennis.
Right, of course.
And you're not even, you don't even feel like you're playing. Me as a player watching this, and someone at home watching the same 2D board, get the exact same experience. So I feel so lucky that the game, not in terms of money, but in terms of content, is so well translated into the internet.
I would say that technology has served chess better than it's served just about any other game or sport. I mean,
for good and bad.
Well, no, because if you turn on the television today and watch a football game, it looks pretty much the same as it did 20 years ago. If you watch snooker, it looks pretty much the same as it did 20 years ago, just better cameras, maybe slightly better angles. Sometimes they have some 3D, positional recreation for the board and stuff like that. Yeah, but for the most part, it doesn't look much different. Chess looks much different than it used to. Now there's analysis boards, and there's even we have an analysis board.
Yeah.
And there are engines. You can have 2 or 3 engines running at a time. There's live streaming. Some people show we
have clocks.
We have clocks. That's right. We have
clock addicts already.
We have clock addicts. So I mean, it's definitely there's definitely a lot to how the technology has helped the game of chess. And the fact is that if you play some sort of 2D version of snooker on your computer or golf or whatever, you're playing a video game.
It's not even as interactive as most video games.
Right. The fact, you're better off playing an actual interactive video game that can be fun. But chess is chess.
Even Blitz chess feels like an interactive video game in a way.
Yeah, but I'm saying chess, you are playing, in fact, the same game. There's a little bit of a difference in the feeling of being over the board and feeling those pieces and having an actual human being across from you. But the chess that you play is the same chess that you would be playing in a hall, and that's not true of any other activity.
That's true.
So, I mean...
So I feel lucky in this regard. Like,
yeah, I suppose you could say that with online poker, but I don't know. Online poker is a...
From my ability to transmit insights and information and metaphors to a lot of people all over the world, I don't have to live the lifestyle of, a Buddhist nun somewhere hiding in a cave.
Right.
Like chess players of the past kind of had to, in a way. They were spending a lot of time alone with the board. And now I can share my...
Peter says, Tal, did you mention backgammon? Okay, that's a fair point. Backgammon, which is actually hugely popular in Israel. You can go anywhere, anytime, and find a backgammon game in Israel. Mm-hmm. I mean, just anywhere. Yeah, any bar, any street corner, there's somebody playing backgammon. That's true.
Yeah, that's more or less the same, but I would say that... that's more or less the only equivalent I can think of. Maybe bridge and poker, of course.
Bridge for sure, yeah. Bridge is definitely.
Poker, definitely, but I would say that...
but poker is a phenomenon of its own.
Yeah, but I feel like chess has its own magic when it comes to being a philosophical tool for teaching and educating people in an entertaining fashion, without them even realizing that they are being educated, and without the person who talks about chess realizing that they're actually talking about life and about many different aspects that are connected with us as humans, not necessarily with the wooden pieces that are moving and being represented on the screen. So we have some more moves.
Jesus through Mary asks, how does a 1330 get a FIDE rating? There are international tournaments with 1,300 players, question mark? The answer is that...
should address the game for a moment.
Yeah, we'll address the game for a moment.
But keep the question in mind.
And then we'll address Jesus through Mary's question.
Yeah, because I don't want them to finish the game before I get back.
Explain this.
Yeah, and without you even noticing, I got back to the analysis board.
That's impressive.
Yeah, thank you. Queen f6 has been played. So it answers the question of where to develop the queen in the most active fashion in one move. And the last part of the sentence, in one move, that's something that my first coach used to say, the first chess teacher I have. And I think this is a nice way to add nice little addition, because many people tend to move the queen more than once. But we would like to find the best the ideal square for the queen that's also active and also going to remain there if possible in only one move. So from this square, I actually wanted to ask you earlier, but we didn't get around to the position, but Queen f6 is the move that's most active because it puts pressure on this bishop, prepares rook ad8 maybe, if necessary, and maybe this bishop will go backwards at some point. And a plan that makes some sense for black would be h6 or h5 if possible, moving the queen and pushing f5 and trying to get some counterplay on the king side, maybe. To which white replied with bishop e4. He doesn't like the fact that his bishop is under attack. He wants his queen to be free, whether he will put it on one of these two squares or push it all the way up the board. So that's what I had to say about the game so far. I don't think analysis are required at the moment. Maybe d4 will be played later. And with that being said, what was the question again?
No. Somebody was asking about getting a FIDE rating. I don't know how it is in other countries, but I know that in Israel, just about every tournament is FIDE rated. Now, I've heard that it's actually tough to find FIDE rated tournaments in other countries, especially in the United States. That's the complaint that I've heard, is that if you're just looking for a weekend tournament and you want to play a FIDE rated tournament, you're going to have a very hard time finding that in the US. But here, I think without exception, the events are FIDE rated. So that even if you're an absolute beginner at 1200, 1100, you're going to find a FIDE rated event. There are under 1200 events always posted.
The wrong?
Oh,
this way. No, I tried.
Oh, you did it?
Actually, right and left are opposite. I just realized it, so I need to move to the right if I want the board to get left.
Ari Makela says in Finland most tournaments are FIDE rated. So let us know, guys. If you have a hard time finding FIDE rated tournaments, and we have greetings from Asaf Givon again. Sup, fellas? Jaivan. I like to call him Jaivan. I think that's how we should pronounce his name.
Asaf's name?
Yeah, Asaf Jaivan. That's how I always call him.
Why?
Why not?
Asaf Jaivan. I just realized.
Jaivan. That's
I didn't understand.
But in all seriousness, let us know if you have hard time finding FIDE rated tournaments in your country. We're curious to know about such things. But here in Israel, it's very, very easy. And so, for example, in my case, what happens a lot is that I'll play like a 1600 and under tournament, and if you just take one or two losses, I mean, you just take a brutal rating hit. And then if people are too interested in me, guys, I'm not that important. You got a grandmaster here. Julius Huber wants to know, what is your rating on online platforms like Lichess or chess.com to have a comparison to your FIDE rating? So I actually pulled it up because I figured somebody might ask. On Chess24, I've never played a bullet game. My Blitz rating is 1563. My classical rating is 1832. I don't know what that says about anything, but that's where I play is on Chess24.
We have Bishop F5 on the board.
Okay.
And Fabi wants to exchange the bishops. So now there is a question for Magnus. What does he want to do? Probably going backwards with the bishop doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But on the other hand, it kind of does, because now the bishop is no longer on d7 and b5 might be a threat. So that's one option.
What about Queen f3?
Queen f3 is the second option, after which I assume black will capture.
Okay. But that capture is a little bit problematic because I get to expose you. Both of us end up with double pawns, but I get to expose your king.
Yeah.
And then after, I don't know, I can even have a stabilizing move like a pawn break like f4. And
I'm not sure if f4 is that necessary, but it's definitely an idea for later.
I'm just looking at the activity of the dark squared bishop and wondering if I can't...
yeah, Queen f3 is definitely a valid option, but I'm not allowed to analyze on this board.
Ah, this is not the analysis board. One, two...
Wait.
Three, 1, 2, 3... There we go.
It's the wrong direction.
Darn it.
It's so hard to keep up with the directions, because we have a mirror. Our camera is like a mirror. So, we're back to the analysis board. Welcome to the World Chess Championship stream.
To the World Chess Championship stream analysis board.
Queen f3.
I just think Queen f3 makes the most sense, even from,
So...
Why? Because of what you told me.
Let's start from scratch. What is the opponent's threat?
Right. The opponent's threat is to trade on e4 and double my pawns.
And so if he has a threat, then there is no point to ask which piece doesn't work, because we want to address the threat. Now we are off to calculation.
Right.
And
takes just doesn't seem...
Yes.
Like I get anything in return.
So you start from checks, captures, and threats. Do you have a check?
No.
No. So you can capture.
Right.
You can capture here.
Right.
And that's about it.
Right. And the queen takes back.
Or you can threat some things. So threaten, yeah. One potential threat is queen f3, attacking the bishop, and also preparing queen takes f6 as mentioned. Another potential idea is bishop g2, going backwards, preventing the opponent's idea, and threatening b5. In a way. Yeah. So these are the three main candidate moves.
Threatening b5 and also threatening an eventual e4, which would be very uncomfortable.
Yeah, e4 and d4 are interesting ideas for white as well. Bishop g2 seems to me like the most principled, but after this, black will most likely play rook a d8, and he's exerting some pressure on d3, which I wouldn't think is too comfortable for black. He still has to calculate b5, but I'm quite sure that he's not lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because this pawn is really, really weak. Also, queen g6 has to be taken into account, directly attacking the pawn. That forces e4. So there are quite a lot of options here, and my main concern, if I were black, would be queen f3, because it practically forces this bishop takes e4. Otherwise, the previous move makes no sense. Queen takes f6, gf, de. And now we've reached yet another complicated pawn structure that I need to translate for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't speak Chinese, so I will just leave it at that and try to...
But with both pairs of rooks on the board, isn't it fair to say immediately white is slightly better? Just because of the exposed kings and...
Well, who has a pawn majority here?
Black.
So black has an advantage on the queen side. White has an advantage on the queen side, not only because it's a pawn up, but also because there are two islands here. So this f6 pawn is a weakness,
right?
Quite a permanent one as well, and it's the same color as the bishop. So I would favor white here, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily that much of an edge, because okay, what if he just goes, let's say, puts the rook on c8, prevents b5 ideas, maybe later he goes rook d8 and tries to, I don't know, slowly play on the d file. Without the rooks, this will definitely be a draw. So I'm having a really tough time evaluating what white might do here. So let's say now he wants to prepare b5 or something, goes with the bishop backwards. Black can play b5 himself, start generating some counterplay. This is a weakness. c5 might be played later to create a passed pawn. So I'm not sure if queen f3 is advantageous for white, but it's definitely not bad. So let's see if we have any additional moves. Yes, and queen f3 has been played.
I always feel
I
good
deleted by accident.
I always feel good when I what's it called? When I anticipate a grandmaster move.
It's not just any grandmaster.
Yeah, that's right. It's one of the better grandmasters out there, so to speak.
Yeah, and we are back to the official board of the game.
And Peter would like to know. I saw it in passing. One second. Peter would like to know. Wait a minute. Where is it? Peter. He wanted to know whether you give lessons.
Oh, yes, I do.
Whether you give lessons online, and yes, he does. And I can tell you from personal experience, he is a very, very good teacher. Don't be fooled by my rating. No, because the fact is that my Israeli rating has gone up 150 points in the past like 7 months, 8 months. Yes. So he is definitely a very, very good teacher.
I've been working in the past 8 years with players of all ranges, from complete beginners to 2600 plus players, to helping players of around 2700 caliber, a little bit more, a little bit less sometimes. And yeah, I cannot say exactly like which rating is my expertise, but I would say that from experience point of view, when I was like, let's say 22 years old, I decided that my main emphasis will be on players that want to become grandmasters and international masters as quickly as possible. So I worked with people of the range of let's say 2200 to 2400, 2450, all of which increased at least 100 points within the first year. So I don't know if I deserve the credit for their hard work, but I definitely take it. So,
and Asaf Givon says Tal is a great teacher, guys. Well, there's a nice vote of confidence.
Thank you. Asaf is a great teacher at his own right.
Yeah, Asaf is a great teacher. Also a great guy all around.
Yeah, we've been good friends since we knew each other, probably around 15 years ago. I don't even remember how old we were when we first met, and yeah, it's kind of funny that in retrospect we both became like ex chess
competitors.
Not really ex-competitors, but ex-chess to be best in Israel. Like, let's call it ex-chess semi. What's the word? Forgot. Prodigies. Semi-prodigies.
Semi-prodigies.
Yeah. Maybe not even semi. Let's say 1/10 of a prodigy.
1/10 of a prodigy?
Peas. Just peas.
Just a prod.
Yeah. And now we are both teaching chess and like sharing our love for the game with the mass. Like whether it's lessons, seminars, simultaneous games, or he has his own YouTube channel as well.
Yeah. And it's definitely worth watching. It's very, very interesting, very entertaining.
So D takes e4, and we have this position, this lovely position on the board. Okay, I still have to say something here. I do think white is slightly more comfortable, but knowing what we've seen earlier about Fabi's resilience, I think he won't have too much trouble holding it. But at the same time, you will be under some pressure, and he will think for a long time. But I don't have my dancing lesson, so maybe this time we'll solve his problem.
That's the thing. Tal does not have a dancing lesson today, which means that there's absolutely no concern.
But I do have
a long game.
I do have a place to be, like potentially in about 3.5 hours from now, which means it will take exactly 4 hours.
Yeah.
To agree to a draw and set me free. That's how I see. By the way, please don't write in Hebrew in the chat. It's while I like it, I don't think most of the people can understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think there's an auto translate button or anything like that in the chat. If there were, it would probably be a different story. But since there isn't, it can get a little bit frustrating for people if we start speaking in a whole bunch of different languages.
Yeah. So regarding myself being a coach, I don't know if my students or my ex-students want to provide me with permission to show off with them, because they are much more humble than I am. So I would say that maybe by the end of the match, I will have receive permission to mention some of names of my favorite hardworking students. Those I won't mention, I'll probably, for a good reason, they just unreached.
They follow the exact line that I predicted.
Which line? D4?
Well, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good.
It's funny, what happens if you have a student and they get like they lose rating over the course of time where they work with you? It haven't happened to me, but I'm wondering, like,
I mean, you have to ask that question. You have to ask why.
I wonder if there are any famous coaches who had this like experience, like
sure there are.
And then
sure there are. There would have to be.
If they actually took responsibility for it.
Well, but I don't know that you can always blame them for it. I mean, just like you said, I can't take credit for their hard work.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you don't know. Listen, if I decide, okay, I'm going to hire, I don't know, Dvoretsky. I mean, obviously he passed away, unfortunately. But let's say I hire Mark Dvoretsky, and then I'm just a lazy teacher. I mean, a lazy student.
Yeah.
So we're going to blame Mark for it. Again, you have to be careful with small sample sets. Yeah. 1, 2, 3 students is not enough to really. But if consistently the results are poor, then obviously you do have. It's reasonable to assume that the coach has something to do with it. Yeah. But I think you have to be very careful making assumptions like that on either side.
Yeah, I've had several guys who started from 2,400 and reached 2,500 within a year's time. And the same for 2340 or 50 to 2450. Mm-hmm. So I feel very confident working with these levels in terms of fast results. But I'm open to any suggestions. And whoever is interested can find my email on the main page of my YouTube channel. When you click about, you will see it if you search hard enough.
Santa in the house says, why no Africans in chess? That's not true. There are plenty of Africans playing chess. There are. Mm-hmm. You go on Fide's go on Fide's website and look at the chess tournaments are divided by region on Fide's website. You can see there's tons of events going on in Africa.
Yeah,
definitely. I don't think they're, with the exception of Japan, which has its own couple of games. I don't think there's a major country where there isn't some serious chess activity going on.
Well, there are small countries here and there.
Well, yeah, I'm sure Liechtenstein or something like that. But I'm just saying, generally speaking, if you go just about anywhere in the world, you're going to be able to find a serious chess club, a serious tournament, etc., etc. Yeah, I mean, certainly,
Yeah. And worst case, you can play online with the Baron Blitz method.
With the Baron Blitz method, yeah.
Yeah. And,
I've played online with people from just about every country I can think of, including Saudi Arabia and Iran and North Korea, and I've played from numerous African countries, and
I think I'll make an actual chess product for people. It will be relatively cheap, I hope. I'll make some research about it. To explain to people in several hours what it is exactly to work with this Blitz method that I mentioned, because I feel like this knowledge can really help improve a lot of people, and I'm sure at least like half of our viewers are playing Blitz at some point during their week. And
yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah, I've improved so much using this tool, and I know so many players. We even got to like 2600 level without ever having a coach. Not too many of them, but they exist. And their main tool of improvement was playing Blitz online. And of course, going over their mistakes. Rookie D1 is on the board.
Yeah.
And regardless to chess, the most powerful tool that we have is our ability to ask questions. Good questions at a very good timing, and I think this is a good timing to ask about Rookie D1. So I'm challenging you to ask a question.
You're challenging me to ask a question? You mean the question I think you're trying to elicit is why would he move the rook again after he just moved it to E1? But I think the answer based on what you and I have spoken about is that what's it called? Is that the rook has finished its task on the E file.
Not being on F1.
Yeah, well, no. That the rook is finished its task on the E1 file, and like you told me, the rook either needs to be on an open file or on a file that's going to open soon, and the E file is certainly not going to open anytime soon. It would take two exchanges for the E file to open, and even if we were to just take all the pawns off of the E file, it would be opposed.
I'm considering to write a song about how unopened the E file is.
How unopened this E file is?
Yes.
And so the D file, I think, is a natural move. You gain a tempo.
Exactly.
So
where are the weaknesses? That's a question I didn't ask you before, but I would love for you to try to answer.
Well, I think the main weaknesses are C6 and F6.
Okay, where are White's weaknesses?
The E4 pawn is the weakest of White's weaknesses.
How can it be attacked?
Oh, that's right. Black doesn't have a white
Oh
square.
no!
What?
I'm using the wrong board.
Uh-oh.
Even though I wasn't moving any pieces.
Let us go to the analysis board. Left or right?
Right.
1, 2, 3. There we go.
Good sound effects as well. So, Rookie D1. And now E4 is not a weakness because it cannot be attacked by any of the black's pieces. Not the bishop nor the rooks. The rooks cannot access the C4 square from maybe G4, but not really because white will prevent it. So E4 is not a real weakness. F6 on the other hand is, because sooner or later it will be attacked and it cannot really move forward. So this is a real weakness, this is a real weakness. Okay. What is white's only real weakness in the position?
The B4 pawn.
Yes. And
learning. This is called progress.
Yes. So sooner or later, I predict that these two pawns will be exchanged for some of these three pawns, and black will be left with a passed pawn.
Okay.
That white will attack and blockade, while black will defend. Maybe the bishops will be exchanged, and we will probably reach some equal rook endgame. But right now black has to decide whether he wants to go with the E or the A rook to D8 before moving the bishop backwards. Because just moving it allows me to yawn.
Allows you to yawn?
Yeah. That's
yeah, and then the other, and then the rook on B1 is going to make its way to D1, and then white is dramatically better.
Yes, and not dramatically, but he has some potential to make progress. So I would play something like this, and well, even though black has these two weaknesses, B4 is very difficult to maintain while attacking them, and C6 will probably, most likely, will be exchanged by B4. And you can say that black has a weakness here, but also white has a weakness in the form of the passed pawn that black will have soon. So the game is more or less balanced, in my opinion. And Caruana is leading by time, for those who didn't notice.
Yeah, but it's not significant. It's not like last time where there was a massive...
protein bar.
massive protein bar. Where there was a massive distinction in time.
Massive distinction in time, yeah. But Fabi will definitely think until he has less time. That's what he usually does.
Really?
Not against me, but... By the way, I forgot to compliment Dingley Ren for breaking Tal's record. Mikhail Tal had the record, not mine, of having 95 games, a streak of 95 games without having lost a single game. After which, Dingley Ren surpassed him in the Shenzhen, probably mispronouncing it, tournament in China, and he reached a perfect 100 games with streak without losing a single game, and he reached to the enormous rating of 2816, and I think probably a little bit higher than that as well, because we didn't see the update.
I'll check.
Only to lose to the almighty MVL, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave of France.
Oh, I know. He's at 2814.3.
Yeah, after the loss.
Just under Mamedyarov.
So
you have 4 people at 2800.
Wow. That's amazing. So Dingley Ren reached 100 games, consecutive games without having lost.
Yeah, that is amazing.
And game 101, he lost to Vachier in an amazing and beautiful tactical game. I'll probably post it at some point, and sometime later on I will post my own game against Dingley Ren, which I'll mention together with the story of our conversation afterwards. And back to the question.
I'm saying, who would you say is the best? If somebody wants a model player to watch these days for tactics, who would you point to?
Who would I talk to?
No, who would you point to? Who would you say, oh, if you want to see some great tactical chess these days, the guys to look at are blank.
Why would you want to look at tactical chess? That's the first thing I'm wondering. Like, great tactical chess, it usually changes from like one game to the next, and not necessarily the same player plays great tactical games one after another. But there are several great attackers of our time, but I wouldn't recommend looking at their games live. I would recommend looking at, like, for example, Agad Mator's chess channel and seek these names within the channel. So one of the greatest attacking players, if not the greatest, is Rashid Nejmdinov or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it. And there are several of his beautiful games shown on Agad Mator's channel. And maybe if you write the name on YouTube, you'll find other channels that analyze these games. And of course, as I said, Mikhail Tal. And there are a bunch of other great attackers.
I think Shirov is well known.
Yeah, but Shirov's style is less sacrificial when it comes to his amazing attacks, and it's more like modern in a way. So, of course, I don't want to makes you any less brilliant than they are. But from the purely aesthetical point of view, I would say that it's not as bombastic as the classical games. And one of the reasons is probably because people resist more and avoid all the beautiful lines.
Sure. Yeah.
But I would say Mikhail Tal and Rashid Nejmdinov are the two main people to begin with. And probably there are series of random attacking games from many different players. So probably the third on the list that should have been mentioned first is Garry Kasparov himself, which is a brilliant attacker before anything else. His tactical skills were simply incomparable with anyone else at the time. With or without protein bars.
With or without protein bars.
So,
okay.
Yeah, that's what I have now.
Black seems to be in a pretty long think here. Like you said, Caruana likes to sort of drag on a little bit, but I mean, is there any chance? I mean, is there really a large set of options here in terms of how Black can respond?
Bishop of Fate is one of them.
Bishop of Fate is one of them. I was about to ask.
Yeah, allowing Rook D7, which was played in the game. Let me show in the official board.
Wow, that was impressive.
Thank you. And Bishop of Fate is right here, where it's supposed to be. And I'm curious what White will do. Rook D7 is what I would consider, but Rook BC1 followed by Bishop E1 is another option. You mentioned that there is some F4 related ideas, but you need to first protect the E4 square. But after F4 there is no follow-up, because if you take, you fix Black's pawns. So I don't see any real plan for White apart from attacking the C6 pawn. So either Rook D7 or Rook BC1. Maybe something with the A pawn first. It could be Rook A1 or one of these moves. But personally I don't like A5. Because after any C5 push, this will be a protected passed pawn.
Right.
Now that's a big asset, and I'm not going to analyze on this board because it's not the analysis board.
It's not the analysis board,
no. So regarding great attackers, there are a lot of books about brilliant attacks. I recall seeing some book with attack in the title. I don't remember exactly the name of the publishing. I think it may have been Thinkers Publishing or something like that. But I think one of the authors was Balog Chaba, which is written C-S-A-B-A. Maybe I'm mispronouncing his name, but he's a brilliant writer, and I think if you can find that book, then it's a good read for sure, even though I didn't read it. Let me search for it actually.
Meanwhile, David Peterson says Magnus juices. Can't break 2700 without PEDs. You think there are any performance enhancing drugs being used at the high end chess level? Think we're going to have a what's it called, a scandal one day with people
one day, yes, but not in the World Championships
because they're tested. I mean, I know they're tested, but then again, they're tested in just about every sport. I mean, I think the biggest scandal with Lance Armstrong is the fact that he was also tested.
And they didn't catch him at the beginning?
Well, they caught him eventually, but...
yeah.
And Minros asks, Tal and Joseph, of all the famous GMs living or dead, who would you most like to play? I mean, to play against? Huh. Wow. For me, I'm gonna go with Mamedyarov again. That's the one guy in chess that I kind of always feel some kind of affinity with. I just, there's something about the way Mamedyarov plays that I just really, really love. You know, like when I see Magnus's games, I understand that he's extraordinary, but I don't feel any desire to play the way Magnus does. Like if that were the only way I could be great at chess, I wouldn't be so thrilled about it. But if I could play more like Mamedyarov, that would make me very, very happy.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because I mean you can try, but it's maybe if you could like find tactics the same way he does, but I don't know, something about it's not only Mamedyarov, it's like most of the top players in Azerbaijan, they have this killer instinct, this sense for the attack, and that's like
even Naidich, who isn't actually Azeri.
Yeah, but maybe that's why one of the reasons they picked him. But I feel like when it comes to their skills, one of the reasons might be is because they grew up in a country where they play a lot of blitz on a real board, and you have to develop your sense for attack, because in a blitz, even if your attack does not work objectively, it's very hard to refute.
Right.
And they are all amazing blitz players, like the national team in Azerbaijan. I personally had the chance to play against, I think, all of them in blitz, except for Mamedyarov, at some point, one point or the other. And maybe I even played Mamedyarov on ICC at some point, I'm not sure. But they are really good at it, and we come back to point one, when we mentioned that if you want to improve something, go to the Baron Blitz method.
Baron Blitz method. That's
play
the way
blitz.
to do it.
Actually, but if you want to improve your attacking skills, real life with a real chessboard blitz helps a lot more for some reason. I don't know exactly why, but we tend to play less on the clock and more for excitement.
Right.
Especially if we have a person watching. So that's when we tend to really tease the opponent with sacrifices.
Yeah, I think so.
So
David Peterson says that was a joke, but do they actually test for PEDs in chess? The answer is yes. No, they do. Chess is tested just like any Olympic. Just on this with the same, not USADA, but USADA is the American one. But there's some organization that does the testing in chess.
And for those who respectfully disagree with my method about blitz, or think that this is part of the practice, but they want to have some form of official organized education on the topic of attacking in chess, so I can recommend two different books. One, if you want to actually learn and not necessarily just watch beautiful games, then I would recommend you the book by Jakob Ogard, which is called Attacking Manual. Actually, there are 2 volumes for this book by Quality Chess. And if you want to watch beautiful attacking games, so as I mentioned, you can go to Agalmator's chess channel, or if you want like a balance between the two, then there is the book I mentioned earlier, which is Best Attacking Games of 2012 to 2015 by Balog Chaba and Arkady Naidich. Yeah.
There you have it.
Yeah. But I really don't remember what's the name of the publishing. Maybe it's written here. Yeah, the picture is too small. Do you see the name of the... Chess Evolution. Oh, that's...
by Chess Evolution.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot. So, it's funny that when the match started, at least I remembered Carlsen being 28-36, and now he's 28-35.
Well, that makes sense. If he has drawn 3 games against an even incrementally small, lower-rated player, his rating should go down, even if it's just by hundredths of a point.
Wow. You will soon discover. That's quite interesting.
28-35.
No, he was never 28-36 during this match.
Well, I would like to see the if we extend, because they rounded up.
No, so far it didn't update, I think.
Okay, but
maybe by 0.1 or something.
Yeah, well, I don't even think it's 0.1. I think it would be like 0.001 or something like that. But it has to be I mean, that's just I mean,
yeah,
I know the equation. It's not a complex equation. Your rating goes down, and it's in Malasso. But
so let's mention the moves in the game: 8x b5, 8x b5, and king g2. Nothing too interesting is happening. White released the tension, so he doesn't lose the pawn on a4 when the time is right. And we have some more moves: king g2, rook ed8, as I mentioned earlier, to try to take over the open file. And Carlsen still wants to play for a win, so he goes rook dc1, or maybe he thinks that's the most objective way to play, simply. And he gives up both of the open files, but he is targeting the c6 pawn.
Right.
Because black doesn't really have much to do with the open files, apart from maybe defending the c6 pawn from the side, which doesn't necessarily achieve too much. But I feel like this will end in a draw relatively
You assume he's going to drop the bishop back to e1?
Yeah, and then double the rooks, and sooner or later they will agree to a draw. Because there's not much progress that any player can make, unfortunately, for us. But
yet again.
yeah, I'm thinking whether I should like prepare some beautiful examples of attacking chess from history between the moves, just to have some viewers just passing by and wow, this is the game from the World Championship, and then I'll go right back to this. I don't even know how to call it. Slow dance. A cold war of trying to exhaust each other.
Yeah. Which seems to be what this is mostly about.
Yeah. I think someone should give them some protein bars so they can start playing more actively.
RWG NBA wants to know, did Caruana use the Petrov defense? The answer is no. Carlsen has not opened with e4 yet. Carlsen has opened one game with d4 and one game with c4. So Fabiano has had no opportunity to use the Petrov. And we said that at the beginning of the very first game that we would be quite surprised if Carlsen tries to jump into a Petrov. But you never know. I mean, yeah, could happen. But thus far it has not.
Yeah. So let us seek another move.
Seek another move? Other than bishop? You mean for black?
Yeah. So with that being said, we have to move to the analysis board. 3, 2, 1. I don't know why I'm announcing it. It's not a spacecraft. Teleportation is much safer. So king g7 has been played. I think Caruana tries to show Carlsen that he also knows to move his king upwards without a plan in mind. And jokes aside, I think he's simply preparing king g6 and maybe threatening to push f5. In case white plays g4 to exchange the h pawn, so that he won't have a lone pawn. Yeah. On the king side. Could become a weakness one day. We can expect bishop e1, rook a6, rook c2, and then something along the lines of rook wherever, and whatever. Something like this. I don't know if you can understand exactly what I meant, but if you have, then congrats, you're a good chess player.
And then one, and then rook b6, and that rook and that pawn never.
I don't think this position deserves further analysis.
Yeah, this is just a draw.
Yes, I don't think the analysis board deserves any further attention.
Such disregard and from the.
Get away. So. Yeah. So while we wait, I'm thinking maybe today we'll make an exception and take a break right now before anything interesting happens.
Okay.
Because I also have a story that I want to share with you, but before I tell you the story about the position, maybe you should enjoy the position. So please try to solve the following study, which is one of the most beautiful studies I've ever seen by none other.
Then let me guess. Yochanan Afik.
Correct. Yeah, he's my favorite composer.
Well, no, if you say it was an incredibly beautiful study, it pretty much has to be by Yochanan Afik.
Exactly. So let's use the same effect. No, you know what? For Yochanan, I will create a completely different effect. We will evaporate into the position. So it's Y to move. We'll take, I don't know, 3-5 minute break. We'll see how much it will take us to solve it. And then we'll be back. Try to find a win for white. And there is a nice story that awaits you afterwards. That is probably me making up some details. So see you soon. Alright, you cannot see us, but believe me, we are back. Let me mention the solution, but not before we go back to the game position. So here we have had additional moves as expected after king g7, bishop e1, attacking c6,
right.
rook dc8, defending, rook c2, rook a4, king f3, and sooner or later rook c1 will be played, I believe, and some mass exchange will take place. But I might be too naive. Maybe Carlsen wants to try to defend and keep torturing his opponent.
I actually thought he was bringing the king over to g4 so that he could play f4. Is that possible, or?
Well, bringing the king here is a good idea, but if you go king g4, I'll go king g6 followed by h5 check. So it doesn't necessarily gain anything. So for the moment, I feel like the king is headed the other way, but I'm not sure if it achieves anything, because the moment it passes through the c file, I'll go c5. So for the moment, seems quite
toothless.
Yeah, that's how it feels to me. At least compared to Carlsen's previous attempts.
So maybe we can take a look at the solution meanwhile to this extraordinary puzzle.
Yes, so let's see first people in the chat what they mentioned. Did anyone suggest?
I think one person suggested the right starting move. Vienda Rista said rook b5, king b5, knight e5. Check. Okay.
So first I'll mention that this study was published in 1972. 1972.
Which is so long ago that neither one of us was born.
46 years ago, Yochanan Afek was during his army service and in Israel. Maybe during a war, who knows?
In 72?
There was.
He would have been preparing for the Yom Kippur War.
Yeah.
The first,
Well, even though it wasn't something that we anticipated, but
no, but there were definitely troop buildup along certain borders. You know.
So while he was in the army,
point is he was young.
Yeah.
Point is he was only 19, 20 years old when he
which is still impressive. I mean, to have published such an amazing study. I don't know if it's his first or not, but probably not at this age. Which was published in a magazine in Sweden, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, and thanks to this study, some years later, he also befriended Alexei Shirov when they met, and who was aware of the move that I will show you later. That was fascinating, and that's a very, very famous chess study. Let me show you the solution. It starts with rook takes b5. Let me turn off this thing that assists the viewers to see the right moves. King takes b5. Now knight e5 check. And the nice thing about this move is that if the king goes to a dark square, the knight d7 wins the game by forking the king and the rook. So for that reason, king a4 is forced. Absolutely forced. Then there comes the following obvious move, knight d7. Attacking the rook, preventing rook b8 check, and at the same time threatening two different checkmates on the board. Black cannot prevent checkmate in the traditional way, but what he can do is play this remarkable move, bishop e2. That's a move that, in my opinion, practically speaking, deserves 2 exclamation marks, because it indirectly protects the rook. If you take the rook, I'll take the bishop. And if you take the bishop, then I can play rook b8 check. And
if knight takes,
stalemate. It's a stalemate. So I got rid of my bishop, after which I'm checking you on the b file. And now there comes the move. If you play king a2, first of all, it's a draw, because rook b2 check, and it's still a draw. King a1, king takes a3, king takes b2, it's a stalemate again. So for that reason, there's only one move in the position that wins Can you see the move? I'll give you another...
Yeah, we'll count the
30 seconds.
30 seconds and see if you can see the move.
Everyone except for Yoav.
Yeah, Yoav, you're not allowed to answer any more of these questions.
Yeah, we should open a private chat with Yoav.
Yeah, that's right.
Where he answers.
Where he has to answer all of these things in a separate chat.
Yes. And we'll only mention when he makes mistakes.
Yeah, that's right. That's
to
right.
motivate the viewers. All right. So for those who haven't seen the move, I will reveal it yet because there are not many legal moves left. It's Bishop B5 check.
Boom.
If King takes, then Knight takes B8 and Black is lost. So Rook takes B5 is the move. The only legal move that doesn't lose the Rook, or does it? Now Black, funnily enough, has a lot of squares, okay, but I'll just mention the squares that don't get the Rook captured in one move. These 3 squares are the only ones that are not immediately falling into being captured, but this falls into Knight C5 fork, this falls into Knight C5 forking, and this falls into Knight B6 forking. So this position is what many people like to refer to as a Zugzwang. Yes? That's a very, very nice example of a Zugzwang. If Black could pass the move, he would be winning in this position.
Right.
But yeah, because it's his move...
Because he has to move, he has to lose.
Yeah, he has to lose the Rook. And I think that's one of the most beautiful and instructive studies that I've seen. And it really helps people to think creatively in chess and see moves that are outside of the box.
And I would say, generally speaking, if you want to be absolutely blown away by solutions to chess problems, try out some of Yochanan Afek's stuff. I mean, this is what he does really better than anybody else, maybe in history.
I mean,
he's just.
I'm not sure that Yochanan will approve this message.
That statement,
because we are. I mean, I'm aware of how ignorant I am when it comes to studies. I may have
he
solved
probably has a list. Yeah, he probably has a list of 20 guys that are better.
Yeah,
but
I probably solved between 1,000 to 3,000 studies in my entire life. But there are like tens of thousands that exist, and there is one name that comes to mind that is definitely very, very gifted, and in my opinion, probably a little bit more, let's say, resourceful than Yochanan in terms of the quantity of studies that he created. His name is Votava. I don't even know what's his first name. And of course there are a lot of other famous composers.
Nothing in this life will come for free, so get out your wallet, shake your dollars with me. I need a dollar. A dollar is what I need.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But listen, regardless, Afek really is extraordinary. I even saw in an interview one time David Navarro referred to him as one of the most brilliant composers.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's definitely on that list, even if he is too humble to admit it.
Yeah.
And I have seen a few of his studies, and over again, I'm just blown away. On the rare occasion that I can even find all the lines, I'm absolutely astounded by how creative it is and how unusual.
Yeah.
How unusual some of the solutions are.
But please mention in the chat or in the comments after the video if you have a favorite composer of your own or any suggestion for someone who can be considered the best composer in chess. Personally, I wish I had the gift to, or let's say the burning desire to compose chess problems in me. It's not a very rewarding thing to do, but it feels like the ultimate art form of chess, especially endgame studies. And I don't know, maybe one day I'll devote some time to this topic, like Jan Timman, who was also a late bloomer in this regard. after. I mean, I wish I'll have a career like Jan Tiemans, and then maybe doing the same thing.
Magnus is back.
Uh-huh.
Here's Magnus again. Magnus, get back to the game. It's your move, for crying out loud. Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not. That's why he's in the chat.
Yeah.
It's because Fabiano's taking too long to think. Magnus gets bored.
Yeah.
Whenever Magnus gets bored, he just he gets up from the board and he walks over to wherever and joins our chat.
Yeah. So, but just for
you know why Magnus joins our chat, right?
Yeah.
He's looking for suggestions that
from Yoav.
From Yoav Yankov. That's exactly what it is. So.
Yeah. I'm glad we both realized the same thing.
It's gotta be
at the same
he
time.
He certainly doesn't want to hear what we have to say.
Yeah. King E2 and well, black.
Okay,
is
so you were right. Yeah. Black is white is heading.
Yeah. I think an interesting addition to the game that like we can have is have this like. Have you heard of this? Forgot the word, but they have this booth where they can in the U.S. Championship.
Oh, like in the Singfield Cup.
Yeah.
They call it a confessional.
Confessional
because
booth.
It comes from the Catholic religion where they.
So they confess to what they think about the position, and it helps with the commentary to make it a little bit more entertaining.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe to have this kind of booth where Caruana can simply have one of his own, and they'll provide him with this famous flower. I don't know how it's called in English exactly. And then he will pick out leaves. Like, he will agree to a draw, he won't agree to a draw. He'll agree to a draw.
Agree to not to agree.
He won't agree. And Carlsen will have a booth like with the same thing on the other side, and he will like, should I agree? Should I disagree? And should I agree? And then eventually they'll shake hands and and we'll see some sparks in the air.
Safagami wants to know, is there any chance this won't end in a draw?
I will take the risk and say yes, there are chances,
well,
but they are very, very slim.
I don't think that's what he's really asking.
They're as slim as the fact that this is not the real Magnus with us.
You don't say, huh?
Wait, I don't remember if I'm trolling myself, you, or the viewers.
No, see, that's the beauty of this.
Trolling isn't addressed.
Trolling isn't, isn't exclusive. You can simultaneously troll in many directions.
Including yourself.
You're multi-trolling.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, of course you can troll yourself.
So, let me ask you, Joseph, because that's a topic that's been on my mind for a while.
Okay.
Like, why is trolling so much fun?
Why is it so much fun?
Yes.
I think it's the anonymity of it. I think it's the fact that you can...
trash talking in chess is very entertaining for the viewers. It's very entertaining for the one who does it. And if the two players are friends and have positive vibes between them, it's also fun for the trashy. But
trash-y.
But I would say that trash talking is a pure form of trolling in a chess game when you play live chess.
Yeah.
And it's very fun. So my question to you is, why is trolling so much fun if it's not anonymous? When it's not anonymous?
That's a good question. I don't know. We would have to ask a psychologist. We'd have to ask a psychologist or even an anthropologist why it is that that people get so much pleasure out of trolling. We have H3.
I think Carlsen also has his own form of trolling Caruana.
Yeah, by playing moves like H3.
Yeah.
In this position.
I don't know. Like, can you actually refer to top players in the world who make random moves as trolling in one form? Like, by some definition, can it be referred to?
I think so. I think so.
I wonder if you will mention it one day in the chat. I'll be very happy. Like, well, why did you continue all these equal end games? Well, it all started when I wanted to troll my opponent back when I was 12, and then they lost, so I discovered this method of moving pieces back and forth. And F5 has been played. That's quite a committal move.
Mm-hmm.
It gets rid of the F6 weakness, and White doesn't have a lot of options but capturing. Well, it does have the option to play Rook BC1, But all in all, it's just
takes. No, he's gonna take
an okay position for black.
I would assume takes.
According to our viewers, e takes f5 has been played.
Well, I would think so.
And
I mean,
king takes f5.
Because if you want to, what's it called? You want to get your if you
and
have a chance
F3.
to undouble your pawns, there's no
And
reason why
F3.
you wouldn't do it.
So now white is preparing either g4 or e4, and then his bishop will be a little bit more free.
Isn't e4 better?
But black's king will be also... Yeah, I don't want to exchange black's pawn. White is the one that wants to press because of this weakness. So maybe e4 and then releasing this bishop at some point. I don't know exactly how, but... Still very close to a draw, especially now that the black king is free and can go to e6. And black doesn't have more than one weakness. White doesn't have more than one weakness. A mass exchange is destined to happen soon.
So you're saying that a position like this, because obviously when I look at this position, I can't see yet that it's a draw. You know what I mean? Like I if I'm white in this position, I don't know, for some reason I feel like I can justify trying to play on a little bit longer. I don't have a good, I mean obviously don't have a good explanation for why. But I kind of feel like, you know, black's outside pawn is isolated. It's suffering a little bit.
Yeah.
You know.
It does. It does suffer, but I mean it's very close to equal. I'll take white, but I think it's still very close to equal.
You think if we were to put this into an engine right now, it would give us like plus 0.5 or something like that? Not even.
0.1.
Oh, jeez.
That's your 0.15 or 18 tops.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's my evaluation.
Yeah, I wish this is one area of the game that I really wish I could. I really wish I could understand better, because I think it would make a big difference in terms of my overall.
Let's mention the regulations a little bit for those who wonder about what happens if they make 12 draws, or let's say the result ends in a draw of 6-6, even if they exchange blows in the meantime, in between. So if after 12 games the result is 6 to each player, 6 points, then they have a day off, after which they will have tie breaks, which means they will play 4 games of rapid, which I think is 20 plus 5 or something like this. Maybe, I'm not sure about the rhythm, I read it somewhere, but something along the lines of like games that last around 50 minutes. 4 games like this. If they end in a draw, then they will play 4 games of blitz, which I don't remember exactly the time control of the blitz. Could have been 10 plus something, 3 or 5, maybe then 5 plus 3. And after the games of blitz, then you can see one game of Armageddon, which is very popular. I don't remember if any World Championship game has been ever decided by an Armageddon game.
Gelfand Anand was down to the last rapid.
Yeah.
Right? That's when it fell apart?
Yeah. I mean, it was a draw in the last rapid, but Anand won the 3rd rapid game, if I remember correctly. So you were in the right page, yeah.
It's here?
No, what you just pressed, yeah, World Championship.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find out the exact...
And then there is like the regulations somewhere.
Yeah, I can't find it. All right, but I'm sure that you're right.
Well, I'll just pull it out from Wikipedia.
For some reason, it's actually easier to get information from Wikipedia sometimes, even though it's not an academic, considered an academically reliable site. Sometimes the sites are actually.
Well, there's a reason it's one of the most popular sites in the world.
Yeah.
So regulations. So 4 rapid games, 25 minutes for each player with 10 seconds increment. If they draw, they play 2 blitz games of 5 plus 3. up to 5 mini matches of
Okay.
best of 2 Blitz games.
Okay.
So 10 games of Blitz.
10 games of Blitz maximum, and then the Armageddon game, which should be 5 against 4 with a 3-second increment.
The Armageddon is 5 against 4 with a 3-second.
Increment starting from move 61. That's interesting.
No, it's regular. The 3-second increment is not a relevant part of it. It's 5 minutes versus 4 with
4
no
minutes.
increment, where black can draw to win the match.
Right.
So black has 1 minute less and the black pieces, but if they draw, then they win the match.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most difficult
Yeah, white has
questions in
to win.
chess, whether you prefer to be white or black in an Armageddon game.
Mm.
And one famous example recently has been Aronian versus Vashiela Grav, where they played an Armageddon game in Gibraltar, if I'm not wrong. That's what I recall. And Aronian picked the white pieces. I don't remember who won the coin toss, but I think Aronian picked the white pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been also Vashiela who picked the black pieces, because the common thing is to pick the black pieces in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And be on the safe side.
And try to force a draw.
Yeah, not force a draw, but have the draw threat hanging above your opponent's head.
Right.
So in one psychological sense, you have the initiative. You can play fast and put a lot of pressure on the opponent to make mistakes. But Aronian played a beautiful game and won, and that helped him to win the tournament. And he also kicked out Nakamura from that situation of knockouts,
Mhm.
the tie breaks by blitz, which is highly impressive. No, I think Vashier kicked out Nakamura, and Aronian was waiting on the side for them to finish their match.
Oh, I see.
Oh, that's another topic to discuss.
So E4 was played as expected.
It was black to move, so Bishop E7 was played, then E4,
Mm-hmm.
King E6, and Bishop D2. So far, nothing special is taking place.
Right.
We can anticipate F5 sooner or later to swap more pieces out of the board. But now the pawn on E5, as it was before, but still is a little bit of a potential weakness because it's on the same color as the bishop.
Well, that's why I was asking whether E4 would be better than G4, because you
Yeah.
fix that pawn.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is a good move, but still the marginal advantage remains. Carlsen keeps pretending to press, and Caruana keeps pretending to care about my lessons and plans during the night. I mean, if I play a World Championship once, I will probably try to win in a dynamic fashion, and then maybe take a draw after 2 or 3 hours, so people can actually make it to whatever plans they have all over the world. I'll even in the how do you call it, in the interviews afterwards, instead of speaking about the game, I'll speak about different potential hobbies that people can start spending their time on.
You'll agree to answer press
Now-
conference to answer any questions that are unrelated to chess, huh?
Yeah, to motivate people to go out and meet people and create a lot of beautiful things together.
Maher knows Daruwala wants to know, instead of F5, why not play F6?
Why not F6 instead of F5? F6 is okay. I mean, it's not a plan in itself, but it protects the E5 pawn. It's an okay-ish move, as Fiedler would say.
Okay-ish.
Yeah.
It's an okay-ish move.
Yeah. I don't know how to imitate Fiedler. You showed a lot of talent in the topic. But what I know about him is that he tends to use to add the ish ending to a lot of words.
Yeah.
And,
Well, Fiedler's English is quite good.
Yeah.
But he has 3 habits that are funny. The first of which is that he loves to start a sentence with a counterindicative statement. He starts sentences with things like, "It would not be entirely inappropriate to suggest that," and then he'll go on with the sentence. in this position, it would not be entirely inappropriate to suggest that Black is not necessarily hoping for much more in terms of counterplay than he has already achieved to this point. So it's a funny length to the sentences that are produced as a result of that. And that might be because he's partially still translating from Russian. But that's the first thing about his English that's a bit funny. The second thing that's funny is that he adds ish and lee. He loves to create modifiers and adverbs that don't actually exist in English. And they're all pretty solid. They're all pretty reasonable. But they're like when we talked about the enjoyability of something.
Of watching him.
Mm-hmm. The enjoyability of watching him,
Yes.
And then the third thing is that from time to time he uses a word that is so advanced relative to the general level of the conversation that it sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. Something George Will, the famous writer, talked about.
Because he reads a lot of books.
Oh yeah, he's obviously extremely intelligent and extremely educated.
Yeah.
But the result of the combination of those three things results in Svidlerish, which is its own form of chess commentary English.
Yes.
And he speaks that way in real life.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that that's actually the way he speaks. This isn't some acted, and it isn't some personality. That's how he speaks.
He's very fun to watch.
Oh yeah, he's and he was a very, very nice guy. Like I said, I got to speak to him a couple of occasions last time he was here in Jerusalem, and he was really... I was surprised by how nice of a guy, how just of a regular, straightforward guy he is. Because like Ivanchuk was there also.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of unapproachable. It's not that he was rude or anything like that. He wasn't. He was just sort of... You never quite got the sense that you could come up to him and say hi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there were a few top players there, and... But yeah, Swidler was definitely very nice. And I had a great evening with Georg Meyer. He's a really, really, really nice guy. He's an absolute gem of a human being and a brilliant person.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant person.
That's true.
But anyway,
I think you say Georg, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know because he's German. So I thought it was Georg.
Maybe, yeah.
But
one day we'll get a chance to ask. And,
Armand Soot asks, is Joseph talking about a dream he had? Yes, I sleep too much and I have very, very intricate dreams. But
I once invented a word. Maybe it was during the previous World Championship on one of my streams. I like the word blunderful.
Blunderful.
Like that's like it became my usual response for when non-chess players ask me in English, "How are you?"
Mm-hmm.
It's like, "Oh, blunderful, thank you." And I really like. So this is a beautiful form of trolling when the person who's being trolled doesn't even know that they are being trolled.
I agree.
Like they are not even sure what they heard, but yet I'm kind of making fun of them not knowing anything about chess and not being aware of how much I am addicted to Blitz without ever mentioning it. So feel free to adopt my let's say, I don't have a new word to express it, but let's say my lovely use of the English language. We can create a dictionary together.
I think your English is improving, though.
I think so too. But we
part of it is when you're forced to speak it for 5 or 6 hours a day for 2 straight weeks.
Yeah.
And you're speaking with a fluent English speaker.
Yeah.
You're going to improve
sooner or later.
Just by sheer immersion, you're going to improve.
Yes.
Just like I suspect, if we sat here playing 15+5 games over the board.
Yeah.
I think there would be some benefit to it that I wouldn't get any other way. But Mahernos Darawala asks, how about a plan for white, h4, then g4, hg4, fg4, with 2 passed pawns on the king side?
Yeah. It's only one passed pawn, because the g pawn will not be a passed pawn as long as there is an f pawn.
What do you say, Mahernos?
But as far as I know, one passed pawn can also be a weakness if it's not properly supported in case of g4 and f takes g4. So yeah, and rook bc1 on the board. So they're getting ready for getting
for a draw. This is exactly what we're
getting
there
ready
it is.
to sleep.
The draw.
And they agreed to a draw. Woohoo!
Just in time for Tal to make the dancing lesson that he doesn't have.
Is there a dancing lesson today? Can we quickly arrange one, because like we still have 2 hours to arrange it so that I can make it today. No. Next Monday when we have a long round until move 200.
247.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and next Monday as well. Oh, so I'm missing 4 out of the 6 lessons of the prepaid crash course. Oh, I see. Thank you. Okay, lovely to talk to you. See you. Bye. Sorry, where were we?
Okay, yeah. So no lesson for you. No lesson for you.
That's a Seinfeld reference.
That's exactly right.
You know, I know some Jewish grandmaster above 2600, I won't mention any name, who never watched Seinfeld and didn't even know what it was.
I can already imagine who you're talking about. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me in the least.
And to this day, that's one of my big life goals, to make this person watch all the episodes.
All the episodes. You'd be looking to get that person to watch one episode.
3 times the speed. You know what? I feel like because we got the game ending so quickly, then we can be creative.
Okay.
With your permission, we can try to play a game of 15 plus something, 10 plus 10, I don't know, on leeches, and actually get the viewers to learn something today. But it's also possible to do it like after the World Championship and do it properly.
1 second. Ashish Bisht asks, what's the score till now? 2-2.
2-2.
4 draws.
2-2.
4 games.
4 games, 2 draws. And 2 more draws with 2 colors for each side. So
we're gonna go through all of the accents eventually.
So if all the women in your life are still in the chat, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. If Levine is watching, do you mind if I? No, let's do it. Let's do one game real quick.
Let's do one game. Okay.
Anybody who wants to stick around?
We don't. Yeah.
We're gonna. This is one of the ways. This is one of the other ways in which I get lessons from Tal, is that we play this, and Lichess is aware of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lichess is aware of this. This is not something which is being done nefariously. So what we do is I'm gonna be the one playing, but Tal is gonna be sort of walking me through the process, and this is actually a really, really fun way to learn how to play. So we're gonna go over to
Lichess.
In
order to achieve that,
I don't remember my sign in though.
That's a good.
I don't remember it at all.
Maybe it's saved here.
Could be.
See.
Could be.
We'll see. Lichess. I'm trying to sign into.
Because I only have that Lichess thing. I don't have a regular Lichess. But let's see. If we have time, then I mean,
something like that.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, you can try.
Oof. Wow. Okay, let me think.
Worst case, we'll just play an unrated game, which is what we're supposed to do anyways. Oh, maybe one of the viewers wants to play against us.
Let's just do that. Yeah, we can just do that. We can do an unrated game.
Okay, so
anybody want to do that?
So that's the best solution for us. So one of the viewers, sorry for not making it in an organized fashion, but just find me on Lichess and challenge me for a game of 10 plus 10, something like that, and we'll do one game with commentary.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and.
So that's on the Lichess that we're looking at right now, the Tal Baron YouTube.
So I'm waiting for challenges, and while I do, I'll mention that I have this project. Right now the product is called Hutch Special, because that's exactly what I did with Hutch. But the point being that my teaching. Oh, we have a challenge. So, are you ready to play against Abhishek 95?
Let's do it.
10 plus 0, but Abhishek, if you hear us, we want an increment. So.
Yeah. We're looking for.
I appreciate the challenge, but we need to get an increment. So the first one to suggest 10 plus 10 or something along these lines. So apologies, 12 plus 3.
Right,
that's a little bit better. Sorry, Abhishek, for not accepting the challenge, but without increment it's going to be difficult. Even 3 seconds is a little bit too little, but...
that's alright. It's alright. Just to have the opportunity for guys to see what...
So we'll play one game of Blitz. So Joseph, be my guest. You can make moves. And just to be clear, I didn't properly say it, but I am going to help Joseph. And this is, I hope it's not a rated game, yeah?
Oh no, is this a rated game?
I think it is. I think it is. Yeah. So let me ask my opponent for permission to abort it for a moment.
Oh yeah, that's right, because we're gonna.
But it's not possible here.
It's okay.
No, but the thing is that in rated games we are not allowed to do any.
To do this, right? Yeah.
So that's an issue. So I'll try to abort the game and see if we can get a rated game, an unrated game where I can help out and actually provide commentaries. The game is going on, and the format is, by the way, that
well, I suppose we could just what's it called?
You can just play, but that's not going to be helpful.
Yeah, that isn't particularly.
The point being of this entire project is that while Joseph is playing, or any of my other students for that matter, I'm asking for their permission in casual games that are unrated to provide commentary for the sake of educational purposes. And I'm guiding Joseph through asking questions and helping him play better. And you as viewers get to think on his behalf also while he's thinking, and answer the questions that I'm asking and learn in a little bit more active fashion. So that's what I can say about this format, but we agreed to a rated game, and I do not want to break the rules of Lichess. According to the rules of the site, we cannot assist each other in any way or form if we are playing under the rating system that they have. And I did receive their permission to do so in a casual game, so just to be clear. And I'm going to also create Lichess tournaments, which I'll publish ahead of time. So sometime during November, I will do a Lichess tournament that will be named Hutch Special, in which all of you can participate, and I will be playing during a live stream, hopefully together with Elizabeth, if she agrees.
Elizabeth who?
Elizabeth.
I don't even know what I'm doing right now. I'm half paying attention to the game and.
Palmeri.
Elizabeth Palmeri, that's right.
Yeah, who supported me in the $300 Patreon tier, which is referred to as the Hutch Special. So
that's the Hutch Special?
On my Patreon page, which I almost forgot about because like at some point a lot of people donated, and I wanted to create all this content for them like I promised, and in order to create all the simultaneous live streams, simultaneous exhibitions, and Blitz, Banter Blitz.
Wait, is that Miss Elizabeth? Is that her?
Maybe. I don't know for sure. But what I was saying is that I really wanted to create all this content for my viewers and for those who donated, and I sent messages on Patreon to all my supporters, but none of them answers. None of them answered. Literally no one.
Oh.
So I just stopped.
Poor Tal. Nobody talks to me.
Poor Tal, receiving money and nobody wants him to do what he committed to do. But yeah, that was disappointing because I lost a lot of motivation to invest in Patreon and in pushing this project forward when my viewers didn't support the project. They supported me financially, which I'm grateful for, but the main
Oh no, you're not supposed to help me.
I was just shocked by that move.
Just
Don't pre-move. That's what I meant.
Don't pre-move.
Don't pre-move. Don't pre-move. You can play Queen f6 after a long thought.
after a long thought.
So what I meant is that the main idea of Patreon, of course, is to help support me and make a living as a chess player, but I also want to create high quality content and interact with my viewers while building a community here, and that didn't happen. So hopefully, maybe now after the World Championship, I will receive real Patreons who enter the site after donating to me and supporting me, and read the messages so we can schedule a stream.
I literally have.
And by the way,
I'm just like completely putzing around here.
By the way, I did not cash in any of the donations just in case one of those people who disappeared wants their money back. I'm still waiting for them to come hunt me.
Magnus Carlsen, after the 4th game, he seems to have outprepared me with the black pieces so far, so I'll have to try even harder.
I'm offering a
Yeah,
draw.
I know, because this is not. That's what I'm trying to do. I like. This is not what he. Well, what's it?
Yeah, but he doesn't know that he will receive another game. So I'm writing to my opponent here, to our opponent, that we are not leaving him. We'll play one without rating if he agrees to a draw.
And Shane Levine, is it Levin maybe? Says, tell the weird no one replied if you sent out a bunch of identical emails that they could have been flagged as spam and not gotten through. That's a good point. Okay, good. Okay, good. So we had... So now they've agreed, and now we can do what it is we actually wanted to do.
10 plus 10?
Yeah, 10 plus 10.
Casual?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are offering...
Okay, now we're going to do this.
Susan Moraes a game.
Susan Moraes.
And by agreeing to playing a casual game with us, we didn't say it specifically in this case, but he's watching the stream and he's heard us. I assume that they agree that I will provide commentary and help out with Joseph. And this is casual, so there is no harm to anyone. And if he disagrees, you can mention in the chat. So let me just verify in the chat that he agrees. Okay. So once he agrees in the chat, I will start with the commentary. Absolutely, so he agrees. Okay, so let's not rush in the opening because we still have viewers who may not know these lines. So I'll just mention that with each move we want to develop a piece, okay? You want to develop a new piece to the board, castle as quickly as possible, and develop the rest of the pieces to the most active squares. And I'll just quickly mention that this is where we want our light pieces to be, in this square. That's called the big center, and the small center is where we want the pawns to be. Okay, sorry. So this is the Catalan defense, and the classical mainline with bishop e7, which kind of reminds me round 2 of the World Championship in the style.
And Miss Elizabeth is asking about...
Yeah. So, yes, Elizabeth, you can contact me on Patreon or via email. And we will take it from there. And d takes c4 is not the main line usually. Usually black castles first and only then captures on c4.
Castles and then c4.
And there is a reason for it, but I will not tell Joseph because that's purely theoretical, like kind of computer-oriented differences. So I will not intervene with the game in terms of opening. So now that you castled, I'll mention that the difference is that you can capture on c4.
No, I know.
Before castling and prevent some different...
like with a6 and b4 and
yeah, exactly.
b5, yeah.
So for example, after a6 you could go bishop g5 and queen c1 back, or bishop f4 with tempo.
Right.
So queen c4 is slightly more precise.
Can we play a game with me having the white pieces later, he asks. I'm certainly up for it. I don't mind.
Well, we have a lot of people that we need to ask whether they like it or not. We can stay here all night if it were only up to the both of us.
Right.
But, you know.
Yeah. We have to ask the missus. And my mother, apparently.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, normally here you have a6, b5, and plans like that, and there's a response with a4. But if he's going to allow me to take it back, then I have there's no way that I, you know. I mean, white recovers the piece, but I mean, white recovers the pawn eventually. But I've never seen this. But I suppose.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for appreciating us. It's far from obvious. It's one thing that some people view the streams and come back and like the content. It's another thing that people express gratitude with words, and it's another thing on a whole different level. People do it with actions and actually help out. Also, at some point, I asked for people to volunteer and help me out with some things that I needed help with, and I had within, like, I don't know, a few hours, 7 people who were willing to contribute their knowledge, skills, and time for me. And this was very, very, made me very happy at the time.
I'm surprised by this move, to be perfectly honest.
Well, me too, because the knight on d7, the pawn c5 don't really belong together in context with the activity of white. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean...
so what's the most active move you can make here?
I mean, honestly, probably rook d1. But either that or bishop f4.
So
I mean, bishop f4
which one is more active? That's what you should ask
Bishop
yourself.
f4.
How come?
Because for one thing, because I don't necessarily have to... I don't have to commit to the rook being on d1. The rook could be very...
Well, is the d-file going to be open soon?
Very likely, yes.
So there is no problem with rook d1. Bishop f4 is not necessarily the best square for the bishop. It could also go to g5.
Could go to g5 instead.
And rook d1 is much more flexible.
Okay.
Knight c3 is also a good move, but rook d1 is the only piece that you know that is really good here at this particular timing.
Right. Okay, I see your point. Yeah.
It practically gains the tempo because the knight will move at some point in order to develop other pieces, and the rook will be targeting the queen. So while you don't necessarily have a threat, this is a very good developing move. That out of bishop f4 and knight c3 and rook d1, this is the most flexible one that preserves your options for later.
I see. Okay.
And in the next moves, I want you to ask out loud what is the opponent threatening, and which piece doesn't work.
Yeah, which have always been sort of our go-to.
So queen b6 on the board. What's the threat?
So what's the threat? Well, I mean, the immediate threat, the immediate result is pinning my bishop, which now, you know, can't go
That's
there.
not a threat.
That's not a threat.
A threat is whether he had another move, would he execute the threat in this particular position.
I don't see a direct threat, if that's what you're talking about. No.
But you're right that you don't want to develop your bishop straight away. So what can you do otherwise that's very active? Chess is simple. Don't think in any sophisticated manner.
Well, I mean, I can just exchange here. I mean, I don't see
a reason to exchange.
A reason to exchange.
I mean, there is pressure between the pawns, but whoever captures is giving up something. If you take, you let him develop the knight.
Giving up a central pawn.
No, I mean, they will be swapped sooner or later, but if you take, you will take with the knight and he developed.
All right. So
if he takes, you take with the knight and you go to the center.
Okay.
So you don't want to release the tension. So what do you want to do?
Then I'll just continue my development.
Where do you develop?
Knight c3.
Awesome. Yeah. So no threat. Which piece doesn't work? The knight. Let's develop it. That's basically how you play, like chess 101.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, what does 101 stand for in English?
What does it stand for?
Because it's like a term.
Anything. It's a term because when you go to university, first year classes start with a 1.
Mm-hmm.
And the second 2 digits tell you just how low on the scale the class is.
Uh-huh.
So like English 101 is first level, first year English.
Mm-hmm.
English 401 would be fourth level, first scale English. And then you can, it just continues from there.
Fourth level?
Fourth year. The first number is the year and the next number is
fourth year, first level, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he captures, and now I have to decide what to capture with. And frankly, I would like to capture with the knight.
Yeah.
Because I develop 2 pieces that way.
Not only that, but let me explain that the rook from this square or this square doesn't make a whole lot of difference. The same with the queen.
Right.
Apart from being able to exchange it. But the knight from here is far less active than it is on d4, where it's like a thorn in black's camp in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here it's much more active. Knights in the center are much more impactful.
Yeah.
In a Svidlerish way.
Buffman, oh yeah, says, was it a draw again? FFS! Yeah. We share your sentiment, my friend. We do. Yes. But, yeah, and so for those of you who, who enjoy this is the way that Tal and I, that Tal guides me through the game.
And soon enough, I don't know exactly when, but I'm planning to very soon open up a brand new website where I'll make cheap products that consist of me and Joseph and other students that are good friends of mine.
Some of them, I mean, with higher levels also.
Yeah, between the range of 800 on leeches to 2,000, maybe a little bit more on leeches, who will study in the same format. And I'm still considering how exactly to, let's say, to organize the product itself. Maybe you'll see full games, maybe it will be 10-minute games, maybe 5-minute games sometimes. But I might edit some parts that are less interesting out of the videos, but it will be videos that will be intended for your purposes of improving your chess in a relatively entertaining fashion. So watching Joseph or another friend playing and then analyzing the game later on, maybe with some remarks about the opening, like I mentioned earlier, that I didn't have time to say during this game. So 95, what's the question?
Well, I mean, obviously the first question is what's the threat, and he's obviously threatening the queen.
Okay, so we don't need to go on.
We don't need to continue with anything else. Yeah, once we know that there's a threat, we know what it is. So obviously, since I can't capture the knight, my only option is to move the queen somewhere, and then the question becomes, if I move, if I drop the queen back to b3, am I going to like the exchange? Am I going to like the resulting pawn structure? And I think the answer is probably no.
So normally in chess, you would like to move forward if possible. What's the most active square you can?
Well, that's what I was thinking about actually, is queen b5, because that way I'm attacking the knight or posing an exchange. That was my first thought.
If you don't see any reason not to move forward, if you cannot refute it yourself, probably your opponent wouldn't be either. Worst case, you learn something.
Yeah.
But if you go backwards, you most likely will learn not to go backwards. So that's a different lesson. So
because then I also now have a very interesting opportunity. I have an interesting choice to capture back with either knight, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I would not capture with the c3 knight just because I would want to, like you said, continue moving forward. The only question is, do I have a response to a6?
Yes, and for those in the chat who wish to maximize their learning experience, the moment you see a move from black, just use your intuition and write in the chat what move you'd like to play, and a very, very short explanation. Like I said, queen b5 moving forward. Or in the other case, like previous move, knight takes d4 because it's more active to capture with a knight. A move and maybe the reason why. And even if you're mistaken, you make more of this lesson. So
yeah, one of the things I like about learning with you this way is that I don't have to win. in order to learn something significant. In fact, I'm more likely to win if I don't.
Don't play it?
Right. And so what I was saying was I would rather take back with this knight because it gives you the chance to move forward. My only thing is I don't know what else I have other than coming back afterward. But that's the same thing here, true. On the other hand, this does, open the file and give me a little bit of activity. So
you're right. A6 is the critical move in both cases.
Mm-hmm.
Which knight capture allows you to play better against A6? Or in other words, move forward.
Knight C3.
If you capture with knight from C3 on B5 and he plays A6,
where to here?
And then Rook A7, where will you move your knight later? It's almost trapped.
It's trapped. You're right. Yeah. And if here, then I can just drop it on E6, on D6, and I'm of course.
And you will grab the pair of bishops.
Yeah, because he's not going to tolerate that knight just sitting there forever.
And it's attacking a bishop.
Yeah, but the bishop can move.
If it moves, then B7 is hanging. So
right, of course. That's the part I missed.
Yeah.
B7 hanging is actually the part that I missed.
Well, with the Catalan bishop on G2, you can never miss it. I mean, you should never miss it. Okay, is he threatening something?
Not really. I mean, he's not really.
True.
I mean, he's really hanging a pawn. Is what he's doing.
So which piece doesn't work? Let's not be too greedy. Let's just.
Which of my pieces isn't working right now? This bishop.
Can you develop it with tempo?
Well, I can develop it to B4. I mean to F4.
All right.
It's not a bad square at all, actually, now, because...
And that's a good advice for everyone watching. In many cases, your opponent lets you grab a pawn. If you have an active move that develops the piece with tempo, it will not be a mistake. Maybe it will not punish him at the very powerful way possible, at the most powerful way. But on principle, just keep developing and don't be greedy. So...
Interesting.
Because grabbing the pawn comes at the cost of a tempo. You will move the rook to b8 and attack your bishop.
Have the bishop
when
back,
you
right?
grab pawns or pieces with tempo, then you can do it without hesitating too much.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're getting hit while letting the opponent develop, essentially you're losing two tempi because he moves the rook, attacks your bishop, and then he gets another move.
Right.
So
this is interesting because now I have a... Well... No, I don't.
You have two options, but this one...
Yeah, the other one I already... Yeah.
This one is more attractive.
It's more attractive, yeah, for sure.
Knight c6, defense b7. That's correct, mentioned by Rituraj Singh. But does he have a threat?
He does not.
Which piece doesn't work?
Yeah, the rook on a1 is actually what I was thinking. Rook to c1.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There is absolutely zero reasons not to activate the rook with tempo. And now you see...
With tempo being the win of winning the pawn.
Yeah. But it's a completely different story winning the pawn, like now that you've developed two pieces.
Sure.
Versus earlier when you lost two tempi that you take in the pawn.
Right.
So in this situation, you're leading by two moves in development. So let's assess the position. Two moves. Why? Because both of your rooks are on open files. Your pieces are more active because they're closer to the center. And not only that you have a threat, but you have the pair of bishops.
Right.
So by grandmaster standards, that's already a huge advantage.
Okay.
So two bishops is almost like one weakness. The lead in development is like another, and activity is like another. So you should have enough pros in order to win the game eventually. Okay, so now can you spot something logical? Because you finished your development. So now the question is, can you keep moving forward in an active way? That's where calculation comes in. Can you...
I'm wondering whether I should just... I know giving up this bishop is never the greatest thing. What I'm looking at is either to play knight to d6 or to trade here and...
take a7.
And take on a7. And what I'm actually just... I'm actually just trying to figure out which of those is... You know, which of those is
You don't want to take on a7 immediately.
No, I'm not taking on a7 immediately. I'm talking about takes.
So there is a famous sentence, I don't remember who said it, but it's like a well-known Soviet phrase, Soviet chess school kind of sentence. The main advantage of having the two bishops is that you have full control of the decision of when to give up one of them.
Right.
And if this feels to you like a good moment to do so...
It seems to make sense to me. I mean, it's, you know...
Okay. Then feel free to
also
check it for yourself.
Yeah. And learn the hard way, yeah. I mean, that...
Yeah. Or the easy way, depends on the outcome. So if they take with the pawn, then you take...
Takes with the pawn, you take. And if he takes with the rook,
and you
takes in the fork. Yeah.
Yeah. If he takes with the rook, it's not a fork. It's just...
It's just he just hangs the... Yeah.
Yeah. You take a pawn and you're threatening c6. This is far more interesting than the game today.
Well, I mean, I think... Well, first of all, I mean, this is... Buffman, oh yeah, says no! But I don't know... I don't know.
I don't know what he's referring to.
I don't know what he's referring to.
Yeah, because there is like a 16-second delay or something. Alright. Just to be clear, knight takes c7 immediately was another option, but I think your move was better because it hits c6 with a tempo now. Now bishop c5 was played, knight takes c6. Awesome. So your two...
I was looking at knight a6, you know, if rook a8, then knight takes anyway, and, you know, but...
Yeah. Another thing that breaks the rules a little bit of Lichess that I apologize for is that even though I'm playing casual games and I'm allowed to do so, Joseph or anyone else for that matter is not supposed to play on my account. And whenever I'm doing these kind of things, I'm streaming, so don't worry.
Yeah, that was...
Okay, so what is his threat?
I mean, his threat is on the f7, it's on the f2 square.
Can you move forward while addressing it?
Can I move forward while addressing it?
That's the key.
No. I mean, other than e3, I can't.
So...
Oh, is that what you meant? Oh, I thought you meant, when you say move forward, I thought you meant with a piece. But yeah, e3 is, I thought was the only, you know, it was either that or block with the knight, which I didn't want to do and get pinned.
That's not forward.
That's not forward. Right, that's what was confusing me.
Logic.
The logic of it. But,
that's how you play chess. You move forward, you address the opponent's threats, and sometimes you improve your pieces.
Yeah.
When there are no threats. So you're 2 pawns up, you're more active.
Yeah.
Now there is another principle that comes to mind, but first, what is his threat?
Well, his threat is, he's threatening the bishop.
Okay, where do you want to put it? What's the most active square?
Seems to me the most active square is here.
Okay.
Because now, you know,
Makes
I mean,
sense.
that's the nature
of central strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Word. And now, if he plays f6 and attacks your bishop.
Well, if he plays f6 and attack the bishop, that's what I was looking at right now. Is whether I can, you know, because I don't mind exchanging pieces.
True.
Given the fact that I have, you know, especially since my pawns are connected like this.
Yeah. When you have a lead in development and material,
yeah, I mean, just really rudimentary stuff that you've told me.
Yeah, you'd like to exchange pieces. If he captures with the bishop, who do you recapture with?
The knight. Was my thought, but I guess I could capture with the rook.
Why?
Just because it's a more centralized.
And it moves forward. That's how you play chess. You move forward with the rook, and not only then you attack the knight, you also have a follow-up later that I want you to find. Once the knight moves, what can you...
Oh, wait a minute. I can start threatening...
That's one thing. What else?
Well, I actually have threats on the 6th rank also because of the pawns.
So, what's the most obvious thing to do when you're leading in by material? Okay, he's giving you the knight, but if he didn't...
Yeah.
Then I'll tell you... Okay, you resigned, but
okay.
Let's just quickly analyze. So here, if you move the knight to c5, I want you to find the simplest move to win the game. We mentioned the principle like about half a minute ago.
I would just play rook to d8.
Exactly.
I just force a trade of rooks, and then I think my position is
winning.
Is much better. Yeah.
Yeah. Knight endgames, by the way, are like pawn endgames. When you have like a pawn, an outside pass pawn, then you win.
Because we promised him.
I don't think I promised a rematch.
Okay.
He just asked for it, and I think it won't be fair for other viewers who are here.
Oh, a lot of people asking. Okay.
So choose your destiny.
Well, the truth is, I should probably start to get going just because I have to get all the way back to Shaul. But I'll do one more game.
Okay, so let's play the faster one.
Which is it? Which one?
The 5+2 maybe.
5+2. Okay.
Okay, and I'll let you just. We'll do a more turbo version of the same thing.
Yeah.
You'll just play quickly with the blitz the moves, and I'll just mention questions at critical moments, like the ones I had earlier. But I don't know if
this time I should be careful because last time I was a bit idiotic and.
Yeah, so I'll let you focus on the opening. Oh, we don't have any less viewers than we had when the game.
Yeah, I'm glad to see people find this interesting because this is something you guys can do with Tal also.
Yeah.
Typically here, black plays e6, d6 first and then castles.
Yeah.
And the idea is to pull the bishop back to b6 if he plays, if he pushes with the, and then I don't have to play h6 unless
Unless you have to.
Unless I have to.
Yeah. Well, now it's a tempo, so it shouldn't be bad.
And I know it's possible for black to actually continue with g5, but I somehow always get a bit nervous making this move. I always feel like black trades 2 pawns for the piece, and suddenly my king is all exposed, and I'm bad at defending, which is, probably the definition of a beginner is that I'm just bad at defending. But
I suggest just try it and see what happens.
Okay. I know that it's a move. I've seen it, but I don't. It's not like I know this line in any kind of meaningful way. But if he's not going to,
it's still not obvious what you should do.
No, my first thought would just be to place the bishop on b7.
That's a little bit passive, given the fact that your pawn is on g5.
It's passive. Okay.
He wants to push d4 and attack you in the center. You have to do like Carlsen did in round number 3. d4 square is very crucial for this game.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Okay, great. Yeah.
So this is already applying something we learned from the World Champion.
Right.
Yes, and now we can continue our development.
Right, yeah, I don't actually have to.
So in this particular position, you don't know the patterns already deeply enough.
Correct.
But I'll mention to you that the main pattern after g5, regardless to where are all the pieces, there is a move you always make. It's with the king. I won't tell you which square, but there is a move that's always been played after g5.
King h2, really?
That's illegal.
King h7 is what I meant.
Not really, because it can be exposed to knight takes g5 checks in the future. There is a better square for the king. I don't know how to explain it. It's just a pattern that's well known.
Really?
Yeah. There's no pin on the a2 g8 diagonal, and you're preparing another move that you probably are not aware of.
That's what I was going to say. Is that this?
So in this structure, king g7 and knight h5 are two moves that.
Yeah, knight h5 I knew. That's why I was.
But the reason we didn't start with knight h5 is because we wanted to be flexible. So now, maybe you can go somewhere else. You know where? You cannot.
I can pull the bishop back.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with keeping this pin.
Yeah.
And to break it, he has to make 2 moves.
Yeah. And now, okay, I don't know if you'll have time for that, but the typical plan is probably to push g4 sooner or later, if it works. If you have a waiting move, you can also play bishop b6 if you have time, just to wait and see what white does with his moves.
Okay. I was under the impression you only play bishop b6 if he plays d4.
Yeah, it's an option just to mention.
Okay.
Another typical plan in some cases is knight to h7 and push f5, which is consistent with your play so far, but you have to be careful of g4 related forks.
Okay.
And probably another one to know, after bishop b6 you can sometimes go knight e7, knight g6 and plan the knight on
that's what I was going to say. That's what I had been familiar with. It's just sort of rearranging
But right now you don't have time for anything. So
no, I know, but I also don't mind. As you well know, I don't mind.
Time on the board, not on the clock.
Oh, you mean actual tempo?
Yeah. You don't have time on the board to make all these plans.
All these maneuvers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because sooner or later you'll go bishop h2 and g4, and you can say goodbye to all these plans. And for that reason, the moment he's threatening g4, that's when you probably want to go g4 yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So if he plays bishop g2, you go g4 as a prophylactical measure against him playing g4. And because of that, and the fact that, okay, he did it. So, and it's very important that your bishop is defended, because otherwise he would move the knight back and you will be
obviously
pinned. So your knight on f6 is very crucial.
Yeah.
That's why I started with king g7 to keep everything under control. And if he takes, you take with the knight.
Oh yeah, obviously
and
that was the whole point. Yeah.
You're preparing f5, and if he doesn't, then he will probably lose a piece.
Yeah.
What happens if knight e1? You tell me.
What happens if knight e1?
He's played, yeah. How do you win a piece?
Well, I can just push.
Yeah.
And threaten fork, not fork, but double attack.
Yeah, on the bishop on h2 and the queen on d1. That's correct.
Johnny Blur says, "Is this guy really 1330? What is this?" The answer is yes.
That's the apocalypse, my friend.
Yes, I am 1330, and this is me getting a lesson from Tal. This is one of the ways in which he teaches me.
Are we playing rated games again?
Are we playing a rated game?
I think so.
Oh, we're gonna have to. Oh. Fine, so I'll what's it called?
I don't know how it happens. I keep not noticing it.
Yeah.
Usually I'm the one offering the games.
Yeah.
But this time I have to be clear. Next time people challenge me only to casual games while I'm streaming. I'm not intending to play rated games. And I apologize, but we've already started. And okay, so how do you proceed? So what's the follow-up of your plan? How do you, like, you move the knight, you move the king to g7, you've been preparing something. Sorry, that wasn't a clue. It was just me bumping into the
yeah.
table.
I can't.
What's the most active move in the position? We talked about this move as the follow-up of moving the knight. You move the knight from f6, yeah?
Yeah.
So what's the logical follow-up to moving the knight and playing actively?
Well, we talked about g4, but
f5.
I mean f5.
Yeah. Knight to g4 to push f5, yeah. And okay, because it's a rated game, and because it's like, okay, please focus on the game, we don't have much time. Forget about the chat for now.
Yeah.
I might look at the chat at some point, but I want to say that because it's a rated game,
yeah,
then we should probably...
We'll resign like one move prior or whatever.
I won't resign. It's I'm saying the opposite, because it's my account. I don't think it's that like bad for my opponent that my 1330 rated friend is playing on my 2555 rated account.
It's the other way around, yeah.
So what I am saying is that if we reach time pressure, if worst come to worst, I will intervene.
Ah, okay.
With Joseph Levine's play.
And then it's actually the correct... that's
just not so that I don't lose my fabulous low rating. Okay, he's attacking your rook. What can you do about it?
Can't I exchange here and then win a piece? Am I counting it correctly?
I think that you don't, but you don't have time to count it incorrectly as well. So, yeah. He says it's a casual game.
Okay.
I don't think it is because... Oh, maybe. Oh, yeah, it does. It is. Oh. Yeah, it says it's a casual game.
One, boom.
People corrected us.
Boom, boom, boom.
Dear opponent, thank you. So I will not intervene whatsoever.
Doesn't that win a piece? I mean, win a pawn?
It doesn't. Just go to another territory. And that's a practical advice. Don't go for such lines if you're unsure. And you see, that's what I meant by it. You spent all the energy calculating this line, and then you didn't even spend a second on deciding which of the three squares to put the rook.
I didn't even. It's just hang a piece. All right, well, that's
no. You can keep playing the game.
I can keep playing. Well, I guess.
Don't rush. Don't.
Ah.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
Ah.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay.
So this is a good point.
This is a good tragedy.
A good point to shake hands, I guess.
Yeah, just resign. That's fine.
And if you wish,
but go back here for a second because this is
what analyze.
I mean. Yeah, I didn't need to blunder this rook. That was just a stupid whatever. But I'm still confused.
Let's go to the analysis board.
Yeah.
And talk about this position. So here, so I don't want to help you out with the calculation, but when you have 2 minutes on the clock, which is not supposed to be the case, but that's our conditions in the stream, because we wanted to finish early, then don't even bother calculating such lines, because you spend a lot of time. You might lose if you're wrong, and if you end up not doing it, then you can lose in other names.
Yeah.
So just assume that it doesn't work.
Okay.
And find the square to go back to.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, a mistake that many players do in real chess when they don't even have a time limitation. They're like so focused, like thinking for half an hour, like, does this work? And then they calculate for a long time and they find the reason for it to fail. Oh, okay, it doesn't work. And immediately...
And then they just blunder the piece. Yeah.
And immediately play something else without checking.
I'm as likely to make that mistake in real life as I am to make it, in... that wasn't a mouse slip. That's just a carelessness that I have.
I call it a brain slip.
Brain slip.
That's what I have all the time. When I'm too focused on the wrong things. Both in chess and in life.
Yeah.
So, let's analyze rook takes f2. Which is a very nice looking move, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
But I want you to find the reason for it not working.
I'm wondering about some ideas with check or whatever.
By the way, all the people who made it this far, if you don't subscribe, I will find you. And if you don't press the bell, then I won't find you. But I will be disappointed. So I have this little bar above our heads, and it needs to reach 2,500 by tomorrow.
So after,
and it's not a coincidence. I wrote it today.
No, because the knight escapes.
No, there is a different reason. No, knight f2. The knight does not escape because it's not being threatened.
You can also just take the bishop.
Exactly. Exactement.
And then I'm actually in a lot of danger.
And you're down a rook.
Yeah.
And unfortunately you don't have
any way to...
any good discovery, and knight f5 check.
Yeah, even it doesn't really work.
King h1.
Yeah, he just runs away, and
knight f5 is coming.
Yeah. Okay.
So that fails, and knight f2 is the best looking move because the bishop is protected, the knight is attacking the queen. But there is another reason that this fails too.
He gives check.
He takes with a check.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And then queen h5.
Yeah.
Alright. So, what move will you play instead of rook f7, my friend?
Well, I mean, we're pretty much just left with rook f1. I mean, rook f8 is really the only...
Yeah. Followed by either a threat of moving the knight somewhere, or queen to g5, which is a good developing move.
Right.
Queen f6. I want to quickly go over the opening just to mention king g7 is one option, and after mentioning it I noticed that we can play this move, knight to h5. I thought at first that knight h5 fails because, or is not too good because of h3, but now I realize that we have this spin, so we can capture.
Right.
And we are threatening the rook, and he cannot recapture and get g4 in. So overall, not such a bad game. And so I want to summarize that Joseph and I, we are going through this experience so that you don't have to, and also so that he doesn't have to during his actual chess game. And I don't know what you think of it, but please provide any feedback that you would like, assuming there are products like this that are going to be launched soon enough. I don't know how much they will cost, but like a bunch of games that will last for 2 hours together with commentary and analysis and so on. I don't think it will like be more than $3, $4, $5 or something like this. And I'll try to make it as worth the money as I possibly can, to add some other features to it, so that people will be able to get the best level of chess education for the lowest price. And another thing I want to mention is that I can really use any remark that you have on this topic, whether you prefer 10-minute games, 5-minute games, you want to see full games or the edited version of them, and And feel free to mention to Joseph whatever you think. If you have any remarks about his chess, he'd love to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And,
well, yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of doing this is, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, the one person here who can't lose is me. You know? No, that's the reality. That's the truth of it, because I can only...
I'm number 2.
You know, because I can only benefit. I mean, you know, I'm gonna. By the time this event is over, I'll have had 50 hours of chess lessons with. You know, I mean, that's more than some people get in a year. Yeah. So I mean, you know, there's no way for me to lose here, and you know, so I'm definitely happy about it. And I'm always interested to hear what people have to say.
Yeah.
And but in terms of the stream, I think it's been a fun evening. This might be, if the games are short, this might be a nice way to sort of cap off the.
No, the wrong one. Wait.
This might be a nice way to cap off the...
The other side. Left, wait.
Oh, you see now? I did something.
Okay.
But anyway, this might be... Chris Obey says, in a year, I've never even had a lesson. Haha. Well, yeah, that's the whole point, is that because we're covering the entire event, 12 games, you have to figure each game's going to be about 4 hours minimum. Means that I sit here for 4 times 12, 48 hours, and we already had a 7-hour game, learning from a grandmaster. I mean, so, you know what I mean? Like I said, it's a tremendous opportunity for me. So I can't lose, and you know, and I don't mind like sort of putting myself out there, and because I had to do this in martial arts too. You know what I'm saying? When you go to a serious martial arts studio, however much of a badass you think you are getting into the dojo, you discover very quickly that you're not even the closest thing to a badass. Let alone being the actual badass in the room. You're not bad or ass. You're just a guy. You know, and there's 20 kinds of guys out there that you know, and there it's also an ego thing, because it's tough to get the crap kicked out of you over and over and over again by smaller guys, by women. You know, it can be a real
in chess by kids.
Yeah, or in chess by kids. It's the same thing. So at a certain point, you're just like, you know what?
Maybe I'm not such a big deal.
Yeah, you put yourself out there and you try to learn everything there is to learn. And I'm I feel like I'm definitely the one who's gaining the most out of this. So.
I'm glad to hear it, and I'm very thankful that you made it
absolutely
to all these rounds and this far in the stream after the game ended. And I just want to mention that I have some time freed because I have less students now in the past month, and I'm intending to find new students who are willing to learn, you know, when it comes to private lessons through Skype and stuff like this. And by the next round, I'll publish some, let's call it, an announcement for those who are willing to join our lovely team with some offers that include better pricing for those who will take more hours. That I didn't offer before, but I decided to do so because now I want to take my chess coaching career a bit more seriously and charge a bit less. So hopefully people will like the idea, and don't forget to provide feedback, subscribe, like all the plugs that you see in the description, and yeah, thanks a lot to the viewers who sticked so far and all the people in the chat who are strictly positive. Wow, I haven't had it in like a year that all the people are positive. You have no idea how much hate I've been receiving on YouTube in the last couple of years. And very glad.
But you know, but that's so easy to do. It's like, it's not impressive.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's like the guy who's always barking about how he's going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
But the fact is that he's never actually going to, you know. Yeah. He's never actually going to do anything. People like to bark, and you know, and so what? At the end of the day, this is fun. Yeah. I mean, I think tonight was the most fun of all of them. Buffman, oh yeah, it says, what do prices look like?
By the next round, I will. Think it through and
maybe post like in the...
Yeah, my problem is not with the prices, it's like how many hours am I actually willing to add to my routine in order to maintain all the other things I want to have in life. I still want to be a professional chess player myself and reach 2650 plus one day. I still want to open up this website I mentioned and provide all these products on a wide range for a very cheap price as well. And other projects that are not necessarily chess related, I do seminars, live seminars that are also very cheap for the most talented kids in Israel. So I have to juggle everything. Plus, I'm learning juggling. So
and dancing.
Yeah.
And English.
No, dancing I don't learn.
You're not learning. You just pay for the lessons.
Yeah. So I need to also pay for the lessons. So. Yeah.
All right.
So I'll see
well,
you
guys, yeah, it's been a great evening, and we will see you not tomorrow night.
Yeah.
But the night
Tomorrow
after, there's no round tomorrow.
4 draws. Round number 5 starts on Thursday at 5 o'clock Israel time, which is 3 p.m. London time, and in the US just sleep late.
Yeah, whatever the time is in the US,
Sleep
I
it
guess
over.
it's 7 hours. What is it? 7 hours, whatever it is.
And I'm feeling very thankful that people stayed so far.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I appreciate Joseph here,
Absolutely.
and I'll see you
My
guys
pleasure.
in the next stream.
Yeah, see you soon.
Bye bye.